Meeting the order with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, February 17th Fishers Town Council meeting. Looks like we don't have any announcements this evening or presentations, so we'll move on. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A, previous meeting minutes for February 3rd exec session and February 3rd work and regular session. Item B, request to approve professional service agreement for sanitary sewer and water main design downtown Fishers. Item C, purchase of police vehicles. Item D, purchase of fire and emergency services vehicles. Resolution 021714, request to approve transfer of town funds. Resolution 021714A, request to approve purchase rollover resolution.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Pete.
And I abstain from the minutes.
And Scott abstains. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Moving on to item 6. Resolution R021714B, request to approve a resolution authorizing execution of the project agreement for the downtown mixed-use development project between the town of Fishers and Fishers Redevelopment LLC. Loftus Robinson. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President, for the welcome. Good evening, members of the council. My name is Tom Dickey. I'm Director of the Community Development Department. Happy to be here before you tonight to speak about this downtown redevelopment project, a very exciting project, culmination of a lot of work on your behalf and staff and also members of the board to your left and to my right of the RDC, the EDC, and the Town Hall Building Corporation. And as we have done with these other large downtown redevelopment projects, we have these in joint meetings with these other bodies here, so everybody hears the same thing, and we get to all vote at the same time. So in order to make this work the way it needs to, we need to open up the meetings of the other bodies. And I see now that we have a quorum for the Town Hall Building Corporation, which is great. Hi, Julie and Rich. Rich, if you want to go ahead and open up the meeting of the Town Hall Building Corporation, that would be great. Okay, that's all you need. That's good. Great. And Josh is waiting on one more member of the EDC to show, and if they don't come tonight, we'll just, we did get RSVPs, we expect them here. If they don't, we'll just have a special meeting of the EDC later in the week.
There he is now.
No, he's RDC. Yeah, your DC is wrong there. He's the RDC.
Oh, sorry.
And then, Paul, if you could open up the RDC, please. Okay, and then if we see one of Josh's cohorts on the EDC, I'll stop my presentation and ask them to open the meeting so we can go ahead and cover that tonight. Thank you very much. All right, so this is an exciting project on the site of the town court building, and the train station site is often known. And if I could get my presentation up. There we go. Very nice. We'll cover both of these illustrations later in the presentation, but the top right is looking from 116th Street at the project with the office building. You can't really see it where the trees are there. It would open up to the pedestrian plaza and the train plaza and the new train platform. And then the bottom left is a picture looking from the west to the east at the new train plaza. And I'll have another picture for you in a minute. You can see the train, what would be mass transit or the existing train there in the background. I thought it would be helpful to cover a couple things tonight. One is the Downtown 2030 plan and just the public planning process that has gone through. I think it's important, as you know, this is our 4th downtown project that we've covered in the last about 15 months, and each one of those fit very specifically into the 2030 plan. That plan, I know I don't expect you to be able to read this, but this is just illustrative of the process it's gone through. That nickel plate code will be officially adopted tonight later in your meeting, and I've just stolen a page from that code that actually talks about the 2030 plan. And bottom left, it begins to talk about when that plan was introduced and kind of all the hearings and public input it's gone through. But it was introduced at a meeting here in December of 2012, The same plan, which I'll click to here, this exact plan was introduced then and has been at Plan Commission here, community meetings, church meetings, town hall government classes since that time. And I would point out the project we're talking about is shown on the plan is right here again showing, and the plan really is being executed on just like it was shown in the plan, which is a building in front, the train station and plaza in the middle, and then a parking garage wrapped with architecturally pleasing residential, so you don't see the parking garage there. So that is the process we've been through from a planning perspective on the plan. I'm going to try to speed through this one relatively quickly because you've seen it before, and I've been at the podium talking about this. But our strategy in downtown redevelopment has been very deliberate. It's been what we call a people strategy. We want people living downtown so they can support those businesses that need that evening traffic, the restaurants, other types of shops. We need people working downtown for that daytime population. We don't want a downtown where everybody leaves and goes working somewhere else, because then you have restaurants that need either a breakfast or a lunchtime crowd and don't get those. So we need those people working here to support downtown businesses. We need people coming downtown for events, which we're very successful at with our amphitheater and other parks programming we have in the downtown. We need people eating and shopping. We need people enjoying public spaces like the new Pocket Park and the new green space, or the new hardscape spaces and green spaces I'll be showing you tonight. And then we need people walking, which means we need parking. We need people to park their cars and get out and walk around. And another bullet on there, which we'll be talking about tonight, part of that people walking is mass transit, the possibility of mass transit someday, which this development will plug right into. People could take the train from south to north, get off and walk around our downtown, or do the opposite. And again, our redevelopment strategy is not complete without the traffic improvements to deal with traffic as it increases in downtown. And these are just a list of improvements that have been planned, some of which are going to be happening this year and others out into the future. All of those will have some impact upon traffic on 116th Street, improving it in some way. I would point out maybe the three most significant improvements being the 106th Street interchange, which is in design today, creating that brand new east-west corridor for people who don't want to drive through downtown but need to travel east and west. The 116th Street real-time signal systems that will happen this year, which will really have our signals communicating with each other and really improve traffic flow on 116th Street. And then finally, something that's not within our control or our direct budgeting, but the I-69 improvements have already had a significant improvement on traffic flow in this area. Downtown redevelopment, these are the streets in downtown that are planned. This one, Fisher's Corner Boulevard extension, is planned for this year and is almost fully designed now and will be going out to bid in March. The improvements to Maple Street, which are here, are not shown, but those are also going to bid in March. And then most likely in 15, perhaps in early 16, improvements to Lantern. This year, though, this improvement, which I think will be a key improvement in our downtown, a new intersection at Lantern and Commercial would be added with a stoplight. This entrance into this park will be eliminated. Flashers then put at the railroad tracks. And so when there's not a train, the flashers aren't flashing. Green can just flow right through here. You get a red light, gives these folks a chance to turn left and get out. They're really going to improve traffic in this area of our downtown. This is what we've done in the last really 24 months. The Nickel Plate Amphitheater opened, started planning in 12, opened in 13. And the facts there. The depot is under construction and really changing daily as we watch it be built. In October of 13, actually it's October of 13, the launch opened and has been very successful, as you know. Then we did the Meyer Najum deal, in which you approved, and that's under design now and should be breaking ground in June. And then just a couple of weeks ago, this redevelopment of the KFC site. And so those projects are all in various stages of design and construction. The project site we're talking about tonight is this site. It becomes really a twin, if you will, of this depot development. And I want to go over the redevelopment goals for this site. As you know, whenever we talk about a redevelopment project, we have specific goals for that project, and this one has been pretty specific and probably has the most sort of goals that we need to set individually for a project. The first one, because of the uniqueness of the site, the first one was to keep the train station functionality. We've said that since December of 2012 when we first started showing that plan that had the redevelopment on the site. The functionality of the train station will stay. which means if mass transit does not come to Fishers and the Indiana Transportation Museum can continue to run the train, it'll be available to do that, public restrooms and so forth, which I'll mention in a minute. At the same time, we want to make sure that whatever we do on this site does not hinder the site's ability to accept mass transit in the future. So in that regard, I'll hit on this later, we've worked extensively with the MPO over the last year to make sure that happens. We wanted a pedestrian plaza and train platform upgrades for the site. We wanted unique downtown office space, really wanted office space that could be used by smaller companies, either those growing out of launch or just smaller companies who want to locate here. And Loftus Robinson, when they come up to talk about the project, we'll go into a little more detail on that type of space which we're targeting to attract sort of that tech user into the downtown. We wanted additional downtown parking. We wanted some kind of architectural building wrap to wrap the garage so you don't just see a parking garage, and that with this project is residential multifamily that wrap that garage so you don't see the garage. We wanted to generate real estate taxes by the development of the project, be able to take those taxes and then pay for the public input, public infrastructure, including the parking garage and the hardscape, the train plaza, those types of things. And then we wanted complementary architecture that would go with the architecture at the depot. It would frame Town Hall from 116th Street, kind of looking at Town Hall, and really begin to envelop or frame the central green in the center of the two buildings. And I've got a couple of points I'll make on that just a little bit later. With respect to the goal of making it ready for, or keeping the train station functional, making it ready for future mass transit, as I mentioned, we've coordinated with the MPO. What you see on the left is a drawing that would be implemented if it was bus rapid transit came to Fishers. And on the right is what it would be if it were rail. And so the project will be designed to accept either one of these platforms in the future. We're coordinating with the Hoosier Heritage Port Authority. Right now we have a meeting actually tomorrow looking at options where the 2014 Fair Train could board, because if this project's under construction, it will not be at that site. So we're looking at options for the 14 Fair Train in the short run. In 15 and beyond, again, you come right back to this site and it operates just like it did, except now you have a public parking garage, you have a nice plaza, you have other amenities around the train station. So again, this is a view of the train station looking east. So you're kind of hovering over the municipal green in the middle, kind of looking to the east from the west. This is where the platform is today. This is the office building proposed, 33,000 square foot office building to the south. And this is the wrap on the garage. So the garage starts right behind this roof line and is there, and then this is the wrap there. If the project moves forward tonight, the design of like public restrooms and the ticket window and other amenities that might be there for the train station are completely within your control, and would happen in this sort of area where you see these awnings of this building that wraps the garage. And right through here is a walkway into the garage. So if you can imagine parking in the garage, walking through here, enjoying this space, and then if you get on the train or the mass transit or whatever it might be, would happen right there. This is a quote from the Indiana Metropolitan Planning Organization that we've been working with, and I'll read it to you. This has been working closely with Fishers staff for over a year to coordinate how a rapid transit station could be integrated into this site to make this already impressive development even more successful by providing fast, reliable, and affordable transportation connections to Noblesville and downtown Indianapolis. And so we continue to work with them on this project. This is the central green, and this is not the exact architecture, which you'll see later of this project. This was a drawing done probably 6 to 9 months ago. But this is the architecture of the Flaherty project. The bricks are actually somewhat darker than this, but this is the depot project that's under construction. This is the central green improvements that are planned for this year and should start in April, adding angled parking to the center, lots of trees, hardscape, limestone benches throughout this area, and then a brick paver lane that as you come in here, if you're going to the depot project, you'll drive through this lane and then into the garage. One thing that's really exciting about these improvements, and I think I really show you this to show you how these two buildings, one of which you're considering tonight, will frame Town Hall and really frame that central green. When this plaza was developed by the veterans group that did this project, they had a landscape architect lay out a park, essentially, and Stuart and David, you and others who were on the council, and Scott Faultless may remember this, we didn't know it when we were having our architect look at this, but once it was done, we shared it with the veterans group and said, what do you know, comments, does it work with the memorial? We want to make sure we don't do anything that disrupts the memorial. And they pulled out their drawing, and it looks almost identical to that. So we're really proud of that, and I think it'll be a great, the Veteran Memorial will be a great anchor for that park. The history of this site we're talking about, it's right here. This is an aerial from 1985. And again, those of you who have been in town government for a long time or just in the town will remember this was Fritz's car lot in 1985, right here on the corner. And then the town actually traded some land because the town hall used to be across the street, traded some land, and Fritz moved his car lot to where it is today. And this is a 94 aerial where you see the auto dealership is now here. This is starting to be cleaned up. I think it's probably owned by the town now in 94. Town hall has been built. And then in 96, you see a little bit more development. You see that the train station was built that year in 96 and is now functional. The existing use of the site, obviously the building is there. The train platform is there. It functions as a train station, if you will, for a few weeks out of the year when the fare train is running downtown and back. But the primary use of the building is not the train station. It's the town court is there, the town employees' health clinic is there, Chamber of Commerce is in the building, and then there's a meeting room which doubles as a courtroom some days when the court's in session, or doubles as a meeting room for the public and other groups when it's not in session. The ticket window, if you will, which I got a picture of, I'll show you in a minute, also doubles as the town court's clerk's collection window for paying speeding tickets and that kind of thing. So it was built in 96. Those are the tenants, if you will. Hamilton County Convention and Visitors Bureau is not in there with personnel. They have a little sort of visitor stand in there, and then the Transportation Museum for those 2 weeks out of the year, and then the North Pole train and I think other special events will use the building at that time. It's about an 8,000 square foot building. There are about 85 parking spaces that surround the building. It has an assessed value, even though it's not taxed, but it's owned by the town. The assessed value is about 1.8, and taxes, since it's owned by the town today, are zero. These are some pictures. So this is the town clerk court window inside, and if you go around this door, then you see this ticket window where the tickets can be bought. So this room's about 8 by 8 or 10 by 10, where that is. And as you all know, there's the one wall in there that has the Indiana Rail history. This is the little just a little kiosk that the Hamilton County Commission and Visitors Bureau has there. It's not manned. I think maybe it is on some of the train events. We have talked to the Hamilton County Commission and Visitors Bureau. They're very interested in doing a more substantial, having a more substantial presence in an upgraded train station, to where they might actually take some space like they have in Carmel, where there's really a lot more going on in that space, you know, with maybe TVs and stuff kind of showing what's going on in Fishers and around the area, and then actually manning it then more than they do today. Okay, so the project overview. I've mentioned a lot of this already. The office building to the south, right along 116th Street, would be 33,000 square feet with retail on the first floor. The multifamily would wrap the garage, again, so you don't see the garage, with smaller units, studio, 1 bedroom, and 2 bedroom. The agreement does not allow the developer to do 3-bedroom units in the project. The garage today is planned at 400 spaces. It could flex a little bit. We're trying to maximize that to the extent we can within budget. And the way the parking would generally break down is 120 or so for the office retail building out front, 150 for the multifamily, which could leave as many as 130 then available for public all day long, 24 hours a day. The beauty of this garage is it'll flex, so during the day, the multifamily people won't be there generally, and then in the evening, at least the office people in the 3rd floor and 2nd floor of the office will not be there, so that 130 in the evening will flex to maybe as many as 250 available then for public parking in the evening. This is the project site, which I think you know well. The site plan for the project, you've really seen the rendering, so you can probably get a feel for it. This is the office building addressing 116th Street with streetscape all around. This is the garage, then wrapped with the multifamily. This is the train plaza in the middle, and the platform, today's platform, it runs from about right there to about right there, and the platform as it exists today is larger than it needs to be for either bus rapid transit or for rail. So through design process, it may get shorter. It's the right width, it's too long, so make it shorter, but I don't expect the platform to change very much at all in the process. Okay, the public-private partnership that's before you, I want to summarize that. The basics are it's about a $28 million investment in our downtown. It includes the land, the site improvements, the buildings, the parking garage. As we've been through the pro formas, we know that the project won't happen if, for example, if the developer had to pay for the garage and all the hardscape and street lights and everything, that this project simply wouldn't happen. The developer's return would be below 5%. It would not be financeable and just simply would not happen. The way we look at these projects then is what investment does the public need to make to A, get the infrastructure that we want, which is the parking spaces in the garage and the hardscape and around the sidewalks and the train plaza, and to give the developer a reasonable return. And that's where we position this project. The developer, given the rents that it can charge for the project, will end up with a return in the range of 7 to 9%, which is a fair return for this project. Then the developer will invest approximately $18.5 million in the project. The basics of the agreement: the town will contribute the multifamily and office parcels and waive our development fees. The developer, Loftus Robinson, will build the project pursuant to our approved plans, which, as you know, is at least a 3-step process with schematic design, design development drawings, and then final construction drawings, with you having approval at each of those steps. The town owns the parking garage during the term of the financing, but at the end of the financing on the garage at the 25th year, it actually transfers to the developer, and the developer then is responsible for owning and maintaining the garage, although the town will retain its rights in those parking spaces that aren't allocated to either the office or the residential, and will pay its fair share of expenses related to those costs. The town will contribute not to exceed $9.5 million. The reason that's a not to exceed number versus a specific number is you control the design of the garage. It's being wrapped by multifamily. So and you control the design of the hardscape around there. So it's not yet designed. We don't have a specific cost estimate. We know it won't be more than $9.5 million. One unique thing about the office component of this project, as you, I'm sure, know, there aren't many speculative office projects being built in the metro area because banks simply won't finance them if there's not a credit tenant signing the lease. And so this deal is structured so that the RDC would sign a master lease for the building. And I'll go into more detail on that in a minute. Loftus Robinson will pay a minimum amount of property taxes, even if assessed at a lower amount. So there's an amount that you can count on each year to service the TIF debt. And the town has, so that the developer doesn't just take the incentive and then sell the project. If they do that, then you share on the upside if they do flip that sale of the building within the first 5 years. The master lease basics, it's a lot like the structure of the Jaeger deal we talked about a few weeks ago. It's the entire building. It's set at 1.25 times the debt service of the developer on that on the debt for the project. In calculating that, their debt service they can only use 80% loan to value, so they can't finance the whole thing and say, well, now town, you have to pay the master lease payment. They can only finance up to 80% of that with a loan to value ratio. Excuse me. It's important to remember, again, this is the same concept, that the developer doesn't make a penny until the RDC's obligation is reduced to zero in any given year. So the building opens with no leases signed, and the town will know that number. We don't expect that to happen. In fact, I'll hit this next point with Blast Media in just a second, but if that were the case, that's the amount that would be owed. The next day, they sign a lease that generates $100,000 a year in revenue, then that goes to reduce that number. So that keeps happening until the town's obligation is zero, and then the developer then can actually make some money. So that's their motivation to make this happen. In this particular deal, we pay no expenses or taxes. That's also a risk of the developer. So if it sits vacant, which again, no one expects it to do, the town would pay the master lease rent, but the developer would be paying taxes and expenses on the project. The reason I talked about we don't expect it to be empty is you'll recall last year we did an economic development agreement with Blast Media, who was looking to move out of Fishers, to keep them in Fishers temporarily, and then had them commit to locating in this building, assuming the building is there by August of 15, which we're on schedule to do if this is approved tonight. And so they've committed to take at least 6,500 square feet in the building, and actually are probably thinking about taking more than that, and are already talking to Loftus Robinson about making that happen. And they would be on the top floor, the third floor of that building. So the TIF cash flow, I've used annual debt service of $9 million here because the 9.5 is not to exceed. It could be a little bit more, but I really think it's hopefully will come in closer to $9 million. The debt service will be approximately $780,000 on a 25-year TIF bond. Projected new tax increment from the project is $297,000. And again, as with other projects, the difference then is paid from existing TIF. As we've gone over the math, and this fits right in with the long-term plan with these 4 projects, which was to bring these 4 projects in and not in within the existing tax increment, and this does that. Another impact, which I mentioned in our last talk about this type of a deal, it has an impact on schools in this particular project in that new AV is not captured in a TIF with respect to school referendums, both capital and operating. So with respect to capital referendums, additional AV in that levy will just mean that the tax rate goes down because they capture the same amount of money. On the operating referendum side, and I've talked to Mike Reuter about this just to confirm that I'm saying this right, that new AV really means new money in the operating levy for the school because it's a set rate. And I'll show you what that means with respect to the 4 projects that we've looked at so far in downtown in just a minute. So the before and after on this project, the use is office building, train station, town court, Chamber of Commerce. I should also mention the Chamber of Commerce is I think Dan Cannon may be here tonight, he's going to try to be, is very supportive of this project. I think he gave us a quote in our press release and knows he's going to, actually the board's already out looking for space. They'd actually love to come back to one of these buildings once it's constructed, but the Chamber of Commerce is very supportive of this. So it's about 8,000 square feet of office. After the project, it would be the train station enhanced and improved, 33,000 square feet of office, about 120 apartments wrapping the garage. Is it ready for mass transit today? Yes. Tomorrow, yes. Public plaza before, I say no, but there is to the east, there is the picnic tables and that sort of that small area there with the steps up to the platform. So there's something there today, but it's much better if this project is approved and moves forward, as I showed you in the drawings. The assessed value today, even though taxes aren't paid on, it's about $1.8 million. Our best prediction is to be about $13.8 million, maybe a little more with this project. Taxes are zero today, would be $295,000 once the project is complete. And of course, you know that for the term of the financing, that's captured in TIF, so it doesn't automatically flow to the schools and town and so on and so forth. But the whole reason you do TIF is you invest today, and in the future, when the debt rolls off, then the additional assessed value is available for the future generations. So that's how that works. Jobs, which is always a big part of downtown redevelopment, is not just about creating a good-looking downtown. It's really about economic development. We've really said that for the last 2 or 3 years. So we're always talking about jobs when we talk about downtown redevelopment. My best guess is with chamber employees and part-time court employees, there might be 6 or 7 employees there today. And just looking at maybe 4 employees per 1,000 on the new development, we're looking at maybe 120 to 130 jobs. Public parking, there's about 85 spots there today around the building, and there are about 400 in the garage, about 250 of those available every evening and weekend. And then what I wanted to show you tonight is kind of before and after. If this project is approved, this will be the 4th project in downtown approved in the last 15, 18 months, which is the depot, the Meyer & Agent project, and the redevelopment of the KFC site. So I've tried to aggregate those 4 numbers and do a before and after. And so these are my best estimates, so they're very illustrative just to sort of make the point on kind of what this is doing. So I don't represent these are going to be dead on. But the assessed value before is about $1.9 million. And I was actually zeroed out the publicly owned land in that calculation. After, it's getting really close to $50 million of assessed value. Again, that will have direct benefit to the future generation when the bonds are paid off. Real estate taxes today are about $42,000, a little over $1 million when the projects are done. Jobs, and this is where it gets real tough, it just makes the point that we're 10 to 15 times higher with jobs that can be in these spaces, and payroll is the same kind of thing, just illustrative of what's going on here from about a $1.7 million payroll to something well into the 20s. Office square footage from about 8,000 square feet, and that's really not even all office. There's just some small portion of that's office to about 125,000 square feet of office with the 4 projects. Residential units, there were 4 homes that the town purchased. They're actually all part of the Meyer & Agent project. There'll be 360 units when these projects are complete. Parking, there's about 105 spaces. With these 4 projects, it'll be 1,320 spaces. Those aren't all public, and we certainly know that they're allocated to different uses, but a lot of those do flex for public use. And this is the point of the school operating levy. With that additional $49 million of assessed value, that would actually generate a close to another $50,000 of real cash to the schools and their operating levy. So while TIF, most certainly, the whole trade-off in TIF is that you invest today for the future, and so that they don't get the benefit of the new assessed value today. Of course, it wouldn't happen without the TIF, so there's that trade-off. But this is a small portion where there is direct benefit to the schools today, so I wanted to make that point. So where we are in the process with next steps, there's a 90-day due diligence process in the agreement, which all of our agreements have had. During that time, there would be lots of design back and forth. The public meetings would happen with you, with more work on your part for the financing, and then the RDC, EDC, and Town Hall Building Corp would all have additional work as well. Closing is projected to happen in June, but I can tell you if design slows down, if we're, that's is in flux, but that's our target. So it'd be well under construction by June or July, hopefully. That's really key then to get that 2015 back in service by August of 2015, so we can make the fair train work in 15. So those are our next steps if this is approved tonight. Our next steps tonight, after I think you're here for public comment, but after you do that and then have a discussion amongst yourselves and questions, it would be for you to consider first the agreement, make a motion or whatever parliamentary procedures you want to take on the motion, and then have the EDC, RDC, and Town Hall Building Corp do the same. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have now, or I think probably better, Loftus Robinson, developer, has a presentation. I'll pull it up and turn the microphone, I think, over to Steve Harden.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Well done.
While he gets ready, Tom, I think just a comment, if we could put your presentation that you just had, if it can go on the web,
Yeah.
with the link.
Yeah, we'll make sure that happens tonight.
Because there's a lot of questions that citizens have been having, and your information shared a lot of facts that will resolve a lot of open questions people have been raising.
Yeah, we'll do that. Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Town Council. For the record, my name is Steve Harden. I'm pleased to be here this evening as part of the Loftus Robinson team. With me from Loftus Robinson are the two principals, Drew Loftus and Kyle Robinson. First off, we want to thank the Town Council for your leadership and guidance throughout this process. It's been invaluable, it's been transparent, it's been clear and direct, and that's been made it so much easier to do business here in the town of Fishers, and we appreciate that tremendously. We'd also like to thank the town staff, particularly Scott Fadness, Tom Dickey, and Shelby Bowen. You have done a great job of having great people and talented people that have worked evenings, weekends, and early mornings, not just on this project, but others, and we greatly appreciate that. I'm going to now ask Drew Loftus to come up, introduce himself, and he's going to walk you through the PowerPoint presentation. Drew?
Thank you, Steve. I'd like to start by first echoing Steve's comments and just saying thanks to the Town Council for hearing our project this evening and working with us. Also like to thank Scott Fadness, Tom Dickey, and Shelby Bowen for all their help and insight as we bring this project together. I'd like to start by telling you a little bit about us, Loftus Robinson. We're here in central Indiana. We develop, construct, and operate a variety of commercial properties. And our focus is on sustainable design-driven projects. These are well-suited to growth entrepreneurs and creative users. And this kind of speaks to Tom's comment on the people. And these are the types of folks that I think we want to see downtown, kind of the creative folks, the entrepreneurs, people that are part of this high-growth business market. Lots of young people, lots of energy. And those are typically the projects that we do. So why Fishers? We are very intimately familiar with Fishers. I was raised in Hamilton County. My mom is actually a teacher in Fishers at Hoosier Road and has been for 13 years, so very, very close to home for us. We're excited to be in the Nickel Plate District. Fishers, as you all know, has just tremendous demographics and really a great vision and community leaders, sort of as Steve spoke to, and for all your help and guidance on this project so far. Obviously, long-term growth is something that Fishers has in spades, and strong climate for business growth and entrepreneurship, and it's close to launch Fishers. And those kind of align with my comment about what we are and what we do. I think those two stand out as being hugely important for us and for this project's success, just in kind of the entrepreneurial culture and having launched Fishers, which is a great amenity being so close to the project. So I'd like to walk everyone through first our site plan, just so there's lay of the land of what all is happening here. On the south side of the project, you can see along 116th Street, that's actually the office building. So between the office building and what you can see as the parking garage and the apartments, that's where the pedestrian plaza will be. Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll arrow around with that. Pro tip. Thank you, Tom. And this is our conceptual rendering of the project in its entirety. Again, subject to feedback and collaboration from town leadership. I'd like to point out some of the materials, brick, glass, stone, so very high quality materials, reflective of we want to be a very high quality project. And you also see on the corner there, you're starting to pick up on where we're going to be able to have some outdoor seating and some other amenities that will really make this widely used and very successful. And this is, I think, one of the things that us and our team are most excited about. You know, I think a lot of people would view having space between buildings like this as a challenge, but we saw that as really probably the coolest part of the project overall. Really neat to have the opportunity to tie into what is now the train boarding area and what could be in the future here, you know, light rail or other mass transit. And what we view this space to be is really bringing people from inside, outside, whether that's an office user who's going to go out and, you know, enjoy their lunch and enjoy the weather, or an apartment user who wants to hang out with friends. It really is going to be a nice, welcoming, and inviting space. And then also another use is really programming. I think that there's a lot of opportunities for users in the area to take advantage of that space, the town included, and have events and things of that nature there in the plaza. As far as amenities go for the project, integrated design is something that's very important. As Tom spoke to, you know, we've really tried to study the other projects in the area and make sure that the architecture of ours is complementary but different, which is sometimes a challenge. I think we've struck a really nice balance with our project on that. Another really unique amenity, and it kind of goes to my point about bringing people from indoors outside, is a rooftop terrace. And you would be amazed what that'll do for just a company's culture, having the ability to go up and have a team meeting, have an investor update or client presentation outside is really a neat amenity that we're seeing growing in really progressive parts of the country. So that's something we're going to be able to do on this project. Also, open concept floor plans with exposed ceiling. Another one of those concepts that's sort of new to office. You see a lot of older buildings retrofit to have this kind of style, but ours will be purpose-built to include it from the beginning, which we think is a tremendous amenity. Retail space with outdoor seating, as I mentioned, and as we could see on the rendering. The pedestrian plaza, which we just had a chance to check out. And then the adjacent parking. And parking will be, you know, huge to make this project a success, and certainly we view folks either from the office, you know, at the end of the day, meeting their family, going to something at the amphitheater. We think having parking that close will be a really great benefit to the project overall. And just a couple more images here. Again, the rendering and a couple ideas of what the interior spaces will look like when they're built out. So I want to, again, thank everyone for allowing us to come present this evening, and appreciate it.
Thank you.
With that,
Comment, maybe it looked like for clarity too, not only outdoor in that space between the two buildings, it not only it said retail and space for outdoor seating, but you know, if there were a restaurant in there, that seems to be adequate al fresco dining kind of opportunities in there too.
yeah, there's actually plenty of space there, either for, like you say, we just kind of took some liberties with what could happen there.
Yeah.
But that red and white awning to the left could easily be a restaurant with outdoor seating there, as well as sort of kiosk kind of opportunities, and then just seating, kind of casual kind of seating there. Absolutely. So I think with that, Mr. President, I'll leave it up to your discretion, but it might be the time to open just open it for public comments, and then we'll have a discussion after that and move as that makes.
Okay, thank you, Tom. At this point, any public comment? If so, please come forward, state your name for the record. Good evening. My name is Greg Purvis. I'm a resident at 12271 Chiseled Stone Drive. I'm an attorney and a candidate for Fishers City Council in the South Central District. I have, for some time, been talking to people about the downtown development, talking to ordinary citizens, not talking to the people in the front of the room here, who are primarily the people you seem to talk to. And that turns into an echo chamber of sorts for you. So I'm going to tell you some things that you're probably not hearing, but that I am hearing, and I'm hearing a lot. The ordinary citizens of Fishers don't like this. They don't like the depot development. They don't like that they're losing their public green space. They liked that. They like the trees. They like the green space. They like the way it is now. They don't want this to look like Carmel East. I know people, I've talked to people over the last few weeks who moved here because of the open green space in the municipal complex. They don't want it built up. That was the selling point for them to move here, because it was different, because it was our sense of space, our sense of being different. They liked having the older buildings in old downtown. They think that gives us character. Those are local people, local businesses, local residents, which downtown development generally is moving them out. And I don't like that, and I don't know too many ordinary citizens who do. I've even talked to people. I was at a meeting Saturday morning. I'm a lady who's here today. Tell me, how do we stop this? Is there any way to undo it? People like her would blow up the concrete that's out front of this building and replant trees, even if it cost us money, because you're already going millions of dollars into debt to give it away to public developers. In this particular case, when I found out Friday that this was on the agenda, and it took some digging, because that agenda item is less than apparent about what it's about. It almost looked like it was deliberately hidden. And I mean, I read legal documents for a living. I'm a practicing attorney for 37 years. I deal in real estate matters. I had to dig through that and dig through the somewhat obtuse drawing attached to it to figure out, hey, they're tearing down the train station. And I knew immediately that was going to be highly unpopular. So I posted it out on social media and got an overwhelming response, hundreds and hundreds of responses, almost unanimously opposed to it. They're shocked by the idea. They're dismayed by the idea. To recall your history, Fishers was founded as a train stop. We have a train station, which was, the current building is less than 20 years old. It's 18 years old. It's got a nice little mural, and it does have people manned, at least on the weekends, from the Visitors and Convention Bureau, because I've been in there on 2 recent weekends, including this Saturday. So it is manned. There are people that go in there. They do talk about the history. They talk about other attractions around Hamilton County. But that train station is an icon for Fishers residents. And you're taking that away, and you are not replacing it. There is no replacement building. The only thing you're going to leave is part, I understand part from Tom's remarks, part of the train platform. You're going to shorten the train platform. Well, you just about touched the third rail of Fishers local politics, I fear, because they don't want it. Now, I could beat that into the ground all you want, and I don't know if any of you will listen, but it's out there. Now, on a somewhat even more sour note, it's not even so much what is being done, because the drawings are pretty. Yeah, I think they're attractive. They're nice drawings. They're a nice concept. It's hard telling how it will actually come out In reality, because concepts and reality almost never match, you don't know that you're going to fill this space. You don't know that you're going to get residents. And if we do get mass transits, whether it's trains or buses, are people going to want to live and work right next to an active rail line with multiple stops every day, or an active bus line with all that noise? That could be a problem. Offices might be one thing. The only thing even remotely comparable I can think of in places that I've seen is in Seattle, where Mariners Field was built right on top of a railroad switching yard. And the roof that goes over the field rolls back over the rail yard. But if the trains come through there and you're sitting in the outfield stands, you can't hear anything that's going on in that stadium except for the trains going by. Trains are noisy, okay? So that's going to be a problem. But again, I said it's how this was being done. You're borrowing $9.5 million to give it to the developer and their affiliated contractor. You're giving away 3.5 acres of public space. You're taking away a building with history, with a connection to our past, which we have precious little of, and giving it to that same developer, tearing it down, and then hiding it, what's left of it, behind other buildings. Okay? And worse, and not for the first time, the developer involved, their contractor affiliate, is a contributor to the town manager's political campaign committee. And that's not the first time this has happened in these developments. That, frankly, doesn't smell very good, especially when some of you are his backers. Okay? Now, that's a little harsher than I'm used to being with you folks, but you need to hear this. This is wrong. It is wrong on concept. It violates our history. An insider, another giveaway to an insider, and it should not be approved.
Other public comment?
Yes, I'm another candidate. I'm Maurice Heitzman, a citizen in Fishers for 40 years. I live at 11156 Meadows Drive. I am a candidate for mayor. And like Mr. Purvis, I'm opposed to this project, not because I'm opposed to community development. I'm very much pro-development, but this is taking away a lot of the heritage and the history of our town. My wife's stepmother was raised in this community back in the 1910s when the train station was on the south side of the street and became on the north side after it burned. And this town has a long history with the train. And when the community development, the metropolitan or municipal complex was built, it was built with a lot of green space. And I know because I was involved with the fire department at that time, and we was told this green space was going to be here for our kids, our grandkids, and so on. That's not happening. We need to protect the heritage of the town, the history, and maintain some of this open space. It is what will provide a good environment, both physically and socially for our families. And we need to protect the economy by using the growth in other than the municipal complex. There's a lot of areas around that can use this economic development to the east, to the west, and even across the interstate, even to the south. I would encourage you to defeat this project and look at another location for it and preserve the train station and not just a platform, which is a icon to make you feel good about it. This shouldn't go. It's not the right time. It's not the right project. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Boland. I live at 7341 Catboat Court in Fishers. And Greg had alluded to people who actually chose this town because of when we drove by. We were looking for a place. We had a condo in Noblesville, and we had had that for several years, but we wanted to get really into what we thought was a really unique community. And when our real estate lady drove us around, and we drove by this place right here, this municipal complex, my first comment was, wow, this is unique. This is something unusual. I have traveled to just about every state in the United States, traveled some of them in depth, and in fact, I'm writing a book about it. And this is a very unique situation that we have here. This green space, the whole atmosphere was very open. It gave an atmosphere that this community was open, that it was honest. It just had that aura about it. And we were really disappointed to find out that part of it was basically being sabotaged. And not only was the green space, but the 100-year trees and so forth, you know, the whole concept seemed to be that let's fill up this space. Let's just put all kinds of brick and mortar here. And what do we have? Do we have a downtown that's really going to be unique than dozens, hundreds of other communities throughout the United States? No. We're going to look like almost every community. We're going to look like a miniature, downsized Carmel is what we're going to look like. You know, and that is not, I don't think, what people here want. It's not why we moved here. You know, we saw the parks here. We saw the green space in the municipal complex. This was great. Secondly, I'd like to object to what has been going on and the whole concept of the way that you're approaching economic development. For one thing, you're giving breaks, you're giving tax money to numerous developers. This is the second time I've been here and spoken, to have businesses that are in competition with the businesses that you already have here. Whether they're in housing, whether it's in retail, whether it's in restaurants and food operations, you already have businesses here. Are you giving them the same tax breaks, the same types of public investments? I doubt it. I don't think so. If I was, I'm a retiree, but if I was a business person here, I would be up in arms that you're giving that type of thing. Economic development should be for something new and unique that you don't already have in the community. You know, if you were developing an amusement park or whatever, something unique that other communities don't have and that you don't already have here, then I would say, yeah, that's something to invest in. That's something to put our public tax dollars in. I'm also worried that what happens if some of these things don't work out? Who's going to be caught with that? Is it going to come back on us homeowners? Is it going to come back on the other businesses, small or large, that are already here? You know, so these are some things that I hope you'll start contemplating and start really looking at in a little better depth. And I would say something else, too, that I have not seen here or even in our competitor communities around, except for Noblesville. I have to give them credit. They are doing through private funds a unique memorial to firefighters who passed away. Now, I've been a friend of firefighters and have numerous relatives who are firefighters and are firefighters. So any type of thing like that, I'm going to go see it. I'm going to go up there and spend some money in that community, have lunch or dinner or fill up my gas tank or whatever when I go up to see that with my family and others. And I'm going to tell other people about that. Everything we do doesn't have to be in the area of economic development just for profit enterprises. You know, the fact that Noblesville is going to get the college campus, that's going to bring people in there to their community, to their retail establishments and so forth, possibly to live there, whether they're a custodian or whether they're an instructor at the college. Those types of things. I would say one of the things you might look at for the betterment of our community and make it more attractive, try to locate a college, a four-year school that will come here. As far as I know, there's none in Hamilton County. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know of any if there are. You have to go down into Indianapolis to get that. So that's a type of thing. The city of South Bend, Indiana, this last year, I'm a big football fan. They lost the College Football Hall of Fame and Museum. It went to Atlanta. Where were we? Why couldn't we look at something like that? You're talking about $9.5 million here. I don't know what that would have entailed, but that's an avenue that we ought to be looking at. So I just say broaden your outlooks, look at things in a little more depth and a little more breadth. So in my opinion, I think we're going in the wrong direction. I would like to see us move in a little bit different direction. Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
My name is Alan Ray Davidson. I'm a resident of Fishers, been a resident since 2007. My residence is at 11292 Aline Way. I also happen to be one of the engineers that work with the Indiana Department of Transportation, and I also happen to be a candidate for Congress for the 5th Congressional District. I'm concerned with this project because it happens to be proposed at the same time another project is underway, specifically the depot. And the depot has not yet been constructed, has not been proven to be viable. It is my opinion that the train station be delayed until the depot be proven viable. In the Department of Transportation, we wouldn't consider anything to be experimental unless we've tried it once and tested it thoroughly to make sure that it produces what we were expecting. Only after doing the test would we consider doing it a second time. My opinion is that the train station upgrade should be delayed until such time that the depot is up and running, taking tenants, conducting business, and can be proved economically viable and in the interest of Fishers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any?
Sorry, I'm short. My name is Michael Krug. I live at 12992 Ambergate Drive, and I am not running for anything. I'm not running for anything at all. I'm normally very pro-growth, My wife and I have lived in long day, Scott? Long day? Poor guy's about to collapse up there. It's hot in here. Yeah, thank you, polar vortex. I am very pro-growth. My wife and I moved here over 25 years ago, and we're excited to see what's going on with our town. And I'm not opposed to the development on its face. I'm very troubled by a couple of things about it. One, that the developer is willing to tell us that it won't happen without public investment, which means we've got to go in the hole about $9 million. I question a lot of their estimates in terms of job estimates, especially in this economy. I think if anybody's going to stand up here and tell us that, and I notice at the bottom they had the disclaimer for illustrative purposes, but in this economy, I'm sorry, we need better than that. We have a lot of unused office space in this town. We have a lot of other developments that didn't pan out the way we were promised that they would. Case in point, the Lantern Apartments that are down on 116th, I don't know how many of you guys were around for that. We were promised a park to go along with that. That's how they sold it. We were promised a park to go with that, and now we've got some more medical buildings. Thank you very much. Things don't always pan out the way that they're promised by developers. I don't trust them any more than I can throw them, because they're not here to serve the best interests of our town. That's our job. Their job is to develop land in a profitable fashion. It is our job to be the stewards of our town. That is our job. That is the job that you have been put here to do, and we expect you to do it. Now, another thing that troubles me about this, and I didn't know about this until today, which is what drove me to come here, is that we've got contractors that are making political contributions to mayoral candidates. Is that true? Would you like to tell me how much?
Sir, we just take your public input and then we'll address later.
I'd like to know what a mayor costs. I do believe that this project has trouble. I'm not on board with it 100%, only because there is history that's going to be lost there. Now, not the actual building. It's only been there since, what, 96? I get that. It's not exactly a historic structure. But this is also a town council that plowed under a historic Masonic lodge to put up a village pantry. I watched that happen. Right where the Shell station is on the corner of 116th and whatever we're calling it now, that goes down to Target. It was a historic building. It was there when my wife and I moved, and we tried to save it, and it didn't work. So to the people who are vehemently opposed to this project, you're not going to win. This project's going to fly, because nobody here will stop it. But what we can do is try to make sure that we make it at least as advantageous as we can. I would ask you guys to please not put us in the hole, because anything going on in this economy right now is a risk, and we don't need to take it. If it is profitable enough for them to invest what they want to invest, then they can still pull it off without our $9 million. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Catherine Barajas. I live at 14068 Woodlark Drive. And I personally moved to Fishers because it wasn't Carmel. And all of your these drawings and everything, I don't particularly like them. They look like turning Fishers into a concrete jungle. Are you opposed to grass? I know that I love when we would come here, and now all the apartments are there now. You can't really see the grass, but this is terrible. This is horribly nerve-wracking for me, but I guess I came here because I don't agree with what you're doing. I think you're taking away the train station. You're taking away Fishers history. Fishers history is important. I've been here for more than 10 years, and I moved here with my late husband, and I didn't move away because he was here. He was part of here. And, you know, being a widow at 30, I had to hold on to the pieces of him that were here. And if you change it all, and you build this concrete jungle, and it just doesn't seem like you're making Fishers special. That's all. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Mary Ellen. I didn't plan on talking at all, and I'll talk really fast. I live in Sunblast.
Can you give your full
What's
address?
your last name, please?
Oh, okay, 7700 Creekside Drive in Sunblast. We
Is
moved.
Ellen your last name?
I'm sorry, it's Mary Ellen Smith.
Thank you.
My husband and I moved back to Indiana in '96. He got a job in Carmel, and we specifically came to Fishers because we thought it was so great, and I still think it's great. And I'm not here to criticize anyone. I think growth is inevitable, and it's usually a good thing. But one of my biggest concerns is I hope that you're all thinking about 116th. Sorry, I'm nervous and I'm shaking. And the proximity to I-69 and what you have here, the fire department, the police department, and all of that, public safety. We already all know that 116th is pretty much getting to be a nightmare, and with everything that's already going on with the depot and what you're planning, if I'm understanding correctly, all of this all at once, I can't imagine driving down 116th. There's already semis on it. It's already pretty much like 96th Street or getting there, and I just think that a lot more thought needs to go into this before you plow ahead and do this great big, like everyone has said, concrete jungle. And I don't want to live in Carmel. We moved, like I said, we moved to Fishers because we liked what we saw here, and I think a little bit of growth gradually is a good thing. But what I'm hearing here tonight sounds like, oh my God, I mean, too much all at once. And like they've said, what if it doesn't pan out like you're hoping that it will? And if you do go through with this, I hope it will. But I am very concerned about the traffic on 116th. I can't even imagine what it will be like for people that are trying to get through there. It's already terrible, and I know you have plans to make it better, but while this is happening, what's the traffic going to be like? Will the first responders even be able to get out? I can't even imagine, and I do hope that you're thinking of all that, because that's what really matters, not just more business. And also, one last comment, those jobs, those will probably be minimum wage jobs and are not really going to, I'm sorry, maybe most of them will be minimum wage jobs that won't really benefit this community. I hope you're thinking about all that, and thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I might be shaking a little bit too. My name's Susan Lillick, and I've lived here in Fishers 23 years. I wasn't planning to come to this meeting. At dinner, my husband mentioned he saw something on the news. I said, oh no, don't tell me they're going to push something through this quickly. That's my concern. I agree with the engineer that came up and spoke. Let's get the depot done, up, working, traffic, before we do this. I also agree with someone that said it's inevitable, it's going to happen, it's going to be built just like you want it. But why does it have to be done at the same time? What's the rush? Can't we get that done first? I don't think anything I say or anyone else says is going to impact your decision. But can't we just do it in stages? I feel like sometimes I've seen the evolution of everything here, and I love this place. My husband and I both have master's degrees. 23 years ago when we moved here, we were young, well-educated, like you're trying to attract. We didn't need all this. We liked the sense of community, and progress is inevitable. But what I'm wondering is, if you folks were in charge of Washington, and this is going to come across snide, and I don't mean it that way, but if you were in charge of the Town Council of Washington, D.C., would you folks sell off the Washington Mall, the reflecting pond, that whole green space? There, across the street here, is a used car lot. And Mr. Fritz is a great community guy. I've read his biography. He's a great guy. But seriously, We've got a used car lot here, and we're selling away all our assets, building up our stuff here. Can't we do something over there with the used car lot area? I don't know. These gentlemen, can't they get funds to do something there? Do we have to give away all our green space, all our sense of Fishers? Governor Daniels, and I don't know this for sure, I think I read it, when Governor Daniels was governor, he was buying up some forests, whatever, for future generations, for the state of Indiana, so that they're to expand the parks in Indiana. We all know that Theodore Roosevelt did the national park system, bought up stuff for future generations, and here I feel like we're taking what we have, our nice municipal complex, and just making it the concrete jungle, like somebody else said. Why? I don't know. I don't understand this. And even as great as Launch Fishers is, I think it's terrific. I think it's a great initiative. You get 10,000 awards for it. But did it have to be in the basement of our library? Couldn't we have expanded things in the library? You look at Carmel's library, it's terrific. Friends of mine take their kids to that library. They have many more programs. But we had to have Launch Fishers down there. Couldn't it be someplace else? I don't know. I think it's terrific. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that was a public asset. These are our assets. They're all being just chopped off, chop. I didn't plan on coming up here, and I'm sorry I didn't really write notes or prepare anything. But I guess that's the gist of it. My friends, I've been talking. They don't understand why this has to happen so fast. We know it's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. But why does it have to happen so fast? And let's see. I guess I'm just a common person here. I think I've read everything I've got to say. So
Thank you.
Can you put the brakes on it?
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Fritz?
You can't pay for advertising like that.
I was know,
going to say,
Fritz.
Council.
That was a freebie.
That has nothing to do with it. My name is Fritz Kreuzinger. I'm a resident of Fishers at 10804 East 116th Street. I've been a resident of Fishers since 1976. Couple things I'd like to hit on. I've been downtown, obviously, in development and redevelopment, just because I know since 1992. I might add one more thing, Mr. I'm not running for any candidacy, but besides that, I have not donated any money to anybody sitting at any of these tables up here. You can check the record on that, too, whoever wanted to know about that. But besides that, I am concerned about what's important to the town and what's important to the people of the town of Fishers. And since 1992, there's been a lot of discussion that's gone on about what should happen with downtown, how should we improve it, should we make it small businesses, redevelop the existing buildings that are there, join them together, put small buildings and whatnot together to have small practical buildings and businesses in. And as time has gone on, those things have been fulfilled and have happened. And I've obviously taken some interest in that to try and build some businesses in the downtown. You consider a project like this, and I don't know, someone spoke that, and I'd heard about the mom and pops. How are the mom and pops in downtown Fishers going to react to these larger projects? I started as a mom and pop right next door here, actually, where the train station was. And we gutted it out and made the most of it as time went on. But what made our business succeed was the fact that as more businesses came and more people came and more activity came, it helped grow our business and it helped provide a service to the other people. The people that are in the businesses that I know downtown look forward to an opportunity to have additional businesses and additional people and additional restaurants to help support the businesses that are there. I might also add that as time goes forward, just as when the car lot was on this side of the street in 1979, and just as when Mrs. Booth ran her road down to her farm as on the property that we now sit, I'm sure at no time did she realize that someday the farm was going to be outgrown and it was going to be time for a town center to come.
just as over there, as the time came for the car lot to move and the town came over here, we moved elsewhere. And likelihood, the time will come and we'll be gone again to go elsewhere. It's just the way things work. When you talk about historic downtown Fishers or any part of historic Fishers, I'm a member of Historic Landmarks. I'm past president of the Ambassador House, Historic Ambassador House and Heritage Gardens, which I think is as historic as any part of downtown or any part of Fishers there is. I think Fishers does an excellent job of maintaining the properties that they have that are historically significant. And studies have been done to prove what's been historically significant and what haven't. I remember the Masonic Lodge just as well as I remember a lot of the other buildings. But the reality of it is, I think as time goes on, needs come and go for particular parcels. Just as I'm not so sure that the train station was a great piece of property and remains to be a great piece of property, I think that as the people that we've called for in the last 4 or 5 years that have talked about what do we want in downtown Fishers, what do we need, what do people ask for, the reality of it is, and we can all go through the studies, we know we've all seen them, these are the type of the things that the people have come forward and said that they want to have happen, have said this is what we want. We want a active, pedestrian-driven, downtown, people-centered downtown area. I think the time seems premature, just as when, I think, Scott, you said this to me when they built the church next to my home on 116th Street. A lot of times when these things come forward, the excitement generates as the building date becomes closer and closer. And believe me, when the Gold Dome started coming up, I started realizing just how much that really meant. I might also add, as the church has been built in the last year, I've come to realize that it's a beautiful piece of ground, it's a beautiful piece of property, and it fulfills a need for the town of Fishers. I'd just like to add that I think as a 30-year resident and a concerned citizen that I think a project like this not only fulfills the need for the town now, but more importantly, it'll fulfill the need for the town of Fishers for the next 20, 30, and 40 years. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Fritz. At this point, have any comments from the council? I'd like to start, if I may. Tom?
Yeah, I was just going to, I would just,
Sure.
A lot of the
Please.
comments were policy-type comments, which I'll let you guys discuss, but I wanted to just hit on a couple of things. One is with respect to there's a comment about the too much space, too much office space, and there's lots of other office buildings in Fishers. This new space will be what's referred to in the commercial real estate industry as Class A office space, which is a office space that attracts top tenants and those good jobs, much more higher paying than minimum wage jobs. And in 2004, Cassidy Turley, one of the largest real estate firms here in the metro area, does a study of office vacancies, and our office vacancy rate in that type of product in the fourth quarter of 2013 was 2.7%. So the fact, and that's really one reason why our economic development strategy has been to bring more Class A office space to downtown. That will change with the new office building being built by Edgeworth Lasky at 106th Street, so we'll have big chunks of space being built there. But we are not able to compete for good jobs in the office market because we don't have that Class A office space. The vacancy in the Class B space is less than about 100,000 square feet, and that's spread out in very small chunks all over Fishers. Tim Gropp and I were talking today. We cannot compete for a 20,000 square foot office user in any building except the new Edgeworth Lasky building and possibly one or two other buildings that are kind of awkward in space and in location. So that's just a factual point on the available office space. And then I wanted to you'll bear with me for just 1 minute. I'm going to go back to my presentation and use a slide as a talking piece. And this is, again, whether or not the vast majority of the public supports this project or not can be a matter of complete public opinion when one person is standing at the microphone. I want to give you some facts with respect, again, the process this plan has gone through and give you at least my indication of what kind of comments we've received over the last, between now and December 2012, which is in 15, 16 months. So, again, I know you can't read this, but we started in December of 2012, again, in this room. We had open houses December 10th, January 17th, February 6th. On the 10th, we were here all day long from about 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. We did presentations. And then on the 2 later dates in January, February, we were here at lunchtime trying to hit people, and then we were here again in the evening making presentations. And we had, and you may recall, we rolled the public works signs out in front of, on 116th Street and said, hey, Arrow, talking about downtown tonight at all these meetings. So we had about 70 in attendance for the December meeting, about 80 for the 2 meetings in January, and about 50 in attendance at the February meetings. And then we've been before council with just generally talking about downtown plan along with the code that's being looked at later tonight. Again, we've been at Fishers United Methodist Church. We've been to the HSE School Board. And I would tell you the overwhelming majority of comments are more consistent with Fritz's comments, and that is that we've been talking about downtown redevelopment in Fishers since at least 1992 when the first citizen study was done. And so I just wanted to pass that along to you. There are, I wouldn't say in every meeting, but in a couple of these meetings there'll be one person who comes up and is passionate about the green space or is passionate about something else, and they just policy-wise do not agree with what we're doing with downtown development. So I wouldn't say there's been without criticism, but if there's a room full of 70 people, we may have gotten 1 or 2 that said, we just disagree with where this is headed. The overwhelming majority of people, again, really support it and really think it's headed in the right direction. So I want to pass that fact along as well. And then with respect to traffic, I listed in the presentation, I won't go back over them in detail, but I listed a number of improvements that have been undertaken by the town to lessen the impact on 116th Street. But by definition, because the community wants a vibrant cultural downtown, which is a statement used in 1992 and in the 2002 citizen study, that comes with more people. And so you got to handle the traffic. So, and there's been improvements to make that happen. But I wanted to assure you, and I'm sure you know this, that all this that we're doing is in close concert with the police and fire departments. We know the stations are right here, particularly the fire department serving this area of downtown. And the depot does not make a move on a public street without fire knowing about it and being coordinated, and so we'll continue to approach it from that respect and ensure that our response time on those 2 factors and public safety is not impacted whatsoever by this project. So I wanted to pass those along. I'll be available for questions.
I think, Tom, if you could, maybe a couple of fact-based questions, because I think there was a lot of comments around green space, and I know that when we did the depot, that certainly was a valid and appropriate argument to make, because it was pure green space, because there had been a home there that had been in disrepair that was later taken down.
Right.
If you were to look at the site under question in this proposal, and either a schematic that you showed, how much of that is green space today that wouldn't be there if this development were to be considered to move forward? So I'm just visualizing it as we drive through it every day, but I just don't see this as green space is always a good argument. It applies in many places around the town. I'm just wondering if it's a relevant argument just for this particular parcel. So trying to gather an understanding of the loss of green space for this development.
And if I could pull back up the presentation of the screen there. This is the best I can do with this, but you can see it's approximately a 3.5 acre parcel, and you have the grass to the south, which is kind of slopes down up towards the tracks there.
So close up to 116th Street where we have a greenery there.
So there's some grass there, and then there's grass in between the parking and the municipal drive there as well. So maybe it's 1/3 of the site or something in that range. And with respect to green space, I mean, it is something that's very important to the town. It is part of who we are, and how it fits into our thinking, as we have presented downtown redevelopment to you over the last 18 months, is that green space is important when it's both when it's inactive and active. And there are places in the town where we have both of those. The inactive green space in front of Town Hall, it really is being repurposed. I mean, now you have, instead of what we had out front with the many successful years out front of Town Hall, is now been moved around back with the amphitheater, and all that green space back there was not being used. Now it's become active. And also, it's also, as you all know, you're balancing public assets across the town, right? So you're investing right now in a new park at Cynthia and South, which very deliberately is both preserving the green space and a park where there's not a lot of concrete. It's very natural. It's the sledding hill, those types of things. And so I know you all know this, but I'm just pointing out that that discussion about green space is a town-wide discussion where you balance all that and try to get the right mix of active and inactive space.
Anything else? Well, certainly just to open up for comment for the council as well regarding this, and just to kind of frame things. You know, the building out there by the track was built in 1996, and certainly some people may deem it historic, but certainly symbolic to certain ways. Unfortunately, the building is not serving the tenants that are in it right now, especially the town court, for example. The town court is out of space and needs more room, and to actually have an addition on it would cost, what, $600,000 roughly to make the town court usable. It's also has issues being ADA compliant, and plumbing, HVAC, some other issues as well. So certainly some things starting to think about. The building right now is used for a train station twice a year, correct? More than that.
Fair trade.
Fair trade. So anyway, just to kind of frame things as well. When I was elected, we looked at economic development as one of the big keys, and I'm a little bit concerned with some of the comment, Greg, and you had your moment to talk. Now it's my turn. But economic development is a real key to, I think, to growing this community, and creating a sense of place, a sense of community to our downtown is very important. And we've talked about it. I mean, in the campaign 2 or 3 years ago, everyone was barking about how the town council was doing no economic development, how we needed to have more economic development. And now that we're doing more economic development, I'm getting criticism that we're doing economic development. So which one is it? I'm a little bit confused here at times. I think this is, one thing. If actually, Larry, I'm going to pick on you a little bit here. You had a post on your page about a sense of having a sense of place, I believe. Arco, if you bring the amenities into the community, people will move here. And this will actually bring people to our community, much more of the millennial generation. My children want a sense of place. A lot of folks now move somewhere, then get a job, rather than my generation where they got a job, then they move there. So there's some things there that we need to consider as we look at this. I've talked to many people in my neighborhood. I get together with folks where I live. I live in Windermere. It's a nice little community at 96th and Cumberland, and we got together and had some hors d'oeuvres and some drinks, and they brought up the downtown, and they're very in favor of the downtown, very positive. So I'm hearing just the opposite of what other folks are hearing as well. We got some emails today, and I actually reached out to some of these folks and talked to them about what this development is going to be like. And once they understood that they actually the train stop was not going to just go away, it was going to continue, actually be better, actually be more of a transit marketplace, they realized, you know what, actually this is going to work for our community. This is going to work for Fishers. So just some things to think about on a broad base. I also don't like this political contribution stuff. That's bothersome. I mean, a developer picked who they picked, whether they gave money to somebody or not. I think we just need to move on there and deal with the project. So, just some of my comments.
John, if I can.
Sure.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for the public comments. I always appreciate hearing from the general community and what's going on, and certainly appreciate the fact that we have a system that allows people to disagree and allows people to go ahead and speak their mind. And I certainly have no issue with listening to folks about green space, listening to people about development. I moved here a number of years ago, and I don't like all the development going on, and I can absolutely appreciate that. That's certainly an option to have. But I do question a lot of the things that have been brought up on basically what I'm going to call a social media blitz, where no one gets to do any fact-checking. Okay, and fact-checking is problematic for me. Okay, I want to tell the audience that I own a pair of work shoes older than that train station. Are my work shoes historic? Is the building historic because of its age? Or is it just because Fishers is a landmark, just because it had a train station and a stop? Again, think through what you're saying. Again, I think there was a lot of stuff that was said out there today that was brought on by an individual, happens to be sitting in the room, happened to be running for council for what's going to end up being, I think, maybe his third or fourth unsuccessful run as a Democrat. And essentially, they like to go ahead and throw rocks at our house. because you cannot do anything right according to this one particular person. And I find it very problematic that statistically you can do 100% of the things wrong. You can't do that. Just can't happen. And if you go back and you look at the comments that this gentleman has made over and over and over again, none of what we've done here in Fishers has been correct. There's not been one thing that this gentleman has brought up that this town has done correctly. I'm here to tell you that's just statistically impossible. It can't happen. You know, you want to argue with us about whether or not you want to do development, I'm fine listening, okay? But I want people to stick to the facts, okay? If you look at the developments that are going on here, we're not giving away anything, okay? There's public parking structures that are being paid for. Public parking. Public parking is the same thing as public roads. We had to expand 126th Street and 116th Street. Did that help businesses down those ways? Did it help developers go ahead and build houses? Did it help those homeowners going out toward the far east of the town develop that side of the town? Absolutely. Okay, was that a giveaway? Did we help other people by putting a road down there? That's what communities do. We develop. We develop a lot of things. We develop parks. A lot of talk about parks out here. Has anyone been out to the new park that's being developed out at Cynthia and South? Has anybody seen that park? Okay, it used to be just a giant cornfield that the town purchased the property, you know, and now is building an active park that's going to go out there. It's going to have a sledding hill, potential zip line, you know, bike race tracks. You know, if you go look at the plan for the parks that are going on out there, Fishers has green space. We take those into account. You know, we're not taking away anything from this community. I think if you look at the development going on there, I can't remember how many trees we cut down, Tom. Who's got the count on the trees? And how many trees are being replaced with? 80 plus? Okay. So it's almost a 3-to-1 replacement on trees down there. You know, again, if you want to go ahead and differ with us on development, I get it. If you don't like development, I get it. If you don't like the type of development, I get it. But stick to the facts and stop throwing things that just aren't factual at us. If you don't know, pick up a phone and call. And the interesting thing is that through this social media thing that is so active right now, and of course we're getting into a campaign and everybody's posturing for campaign reasons, and I may be one of the lucky guys up here in the council because I don't have a candidate I'm running against, okay, is the fact that, you know, you can go ahead and posture all you want, but I will pick up the phone if anybody calls me. And I have yet not to tell anybody the truth either, okay? I find the truth to be an easy thing to tell. Okay, because then I don't have to remember the lies I told, okay? And people can go ahead and spout whatever they want on the internet without any fact checking. I find that to be wrong. Pick up the phone and call. Some of these people and supporters that the gentleman had mentioned earlier, I picked up the phone and called because they were in my district. I could read you the comments that have been coming in all night because I told them to watch online. I would say 9 out of 10 of those are now supportive of this project, where they weren't because they were given misinformation on social media. I'm going to make this one last point. And again, there's a lot of good points that people made, and I appreciate all the comments that people made out there. I will point out, we have a council here that acts as a legislative and executive body. We make the decisions for the town. Who sits over there? Staff. Staff sits there. Staff doesn't make a decision who goes and who doesn't go. If council wants to make a decision to go with the developer, they go with the developer. It has nothing to do with staff sitting over there. Nothing. Okay, so the council can make that decision. So if you want to go ahead and pick on somebody because they happen to be running for an elected office, okay, and where contribution come in, that gentleman has no choice in this matter, none. He's not going to get a vote. We're going to vote here in a second, and he can't vote. He cannot vote. I find that reprehensible, Mr. Purvis, that you would bring that up. It's beyond reproach to me that you want to take somebody like that and throw him under the bus, and you constantly do that over and over and over again. It's not the right thing to do. It's the wrong thing to do. That's what gives politics a bad name. And I, for one, am tired of the shenanigans that you continue to play in this area. And I will tell you, if you want to continue, I will start to fight back. Thank you.
John, I'd like to make a comment, if I may, please.
Please.
Thank you.
Public comments over. You had your time. Thank you. Renee?
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you again for all of folks who have come up to speak. It is nerve-wracking, ladies, I can appreciate that, but appreciate you coming up and speaking your voice. That's very important. And to Pete's point, it's good to agree to disagree, and that's healthy, and that's good. When we started looking at this downtown plan, you start talking about what does it look like, and Fritz, we've had this conversation so many times about, we can talk about a plan, pay for all these drawings and renderings, and nothing happens. We are starting to do things, and I've been supportive of those projects. Downtown walkability, livability is good. Change is hard. It is. None of us like it. The older I get, the harder it is. But it's good for us. It's good for the community. I continue to support the projects that bring high-paying jobs, that bring the future. That's important as well. I can appreciate the comments about let's let one project complete and see how that does, and then we can do another project. Being cautious is a good thing. At the same time, you're trying to balance momentum as well. That's why I have approved previous projects. I support economic development, pro-business, pro-growth. Let's do more of this. However, I will be opposing the project on the grounds that I wish it was more of a transparent process, in that when we have the land that we voted for on the depot, that was a bidding process. We had people come to the table and express their willingness to garner whatever business deal we could get, in the sense that some were able to bring more money, some were able to bring more jobs, et cetera, et cetera. That is the part that really bothers me about this particular project. But again, I'm pro-business, pro-economic development. I think this is a good project. If we would just have had an opportunity to have more people come and bring their ideas, maybe we could have had a better deal. We've had some conversations with staff about, if we would have went to a public opportunity, I don't think we could have gotten a better deal than what we've got here. I've been in sales, and I know that you don't know what you don't know if you don't have other people giving you facts of what they can do. So that's all I have to say. Thanks, John.
Anything else? Other comments? Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'd make a few comments. Just wanted to check, see, didn't want to get on anyone's. So I want to thank everyone for the public process. I think, as Tom said, this is a dialogue on this particular parcel that started back in 2012. Now, Tom, as our Director of Development, may think that is an excellent time for public input. He listed some of the inputs. But speed and timing is always in the eye of the beholder. If something that's fast, then you can't dispute anyone's opinion. So today, in public hearing sessions that have been going on since December of 2012, all the way through to tonight's, that's part of the process. We gather input, we gather different people's perspectives, we gather facts and presentations, and we formulate them. We make the best judgments that we can based on our belief structure and the information that we have before us. So I think while people can agree to disagree, we always want to try to be civil and reflective of the process and respectful. And I think sometimes that can get heated at times when things are, as was commented on, when there's lack of clarity of what some people believe are facts and others manipulate or distort or aren't aware. For example, we do have a park behind the apartments, that's been fully functional and has access to it. And so that, we can talk after the session. We can go visit it. It's probably too easy to get to trudge through the snow right now, but there's a path out there, fishing hole for Boy Scouts have done a lot of work back in there in volunteer efforts. So there's a variety of things that sometimes people know, sometimes people don't. It's not right out on the front of Lantern, it's back behind. So there's access to it. You can go on the website and find it. And so there's other opportunities. So I think sometimes you just get too far down a rabbit hole and you think, well, for this reason I'm opposed. Anyone can have a reason for or against. The process here is to respect those opinions and have people convey them. Sometimes if people think your opinion is based on faulty information, they might share facts in light of maybe changing that opinion or shedding a broader light. At the end of the day, anyone can have their opinion based on the reflective nature of what they consider of value. And that's part of the democratic process and part of what we respect in this effort. the fundamental condition that we have here is around economic development. I've been on the council since 1995. I remember trying on about 4 or 5 different occasions looking at different projects to redevelop the downtown, okay? And each of those failed for a variety of reasons. This opportunity that we're doing at the depot and doing here on this site being considered is about a jump start process to initiate development that has a substantial amount of public infrastructure embedded in it. Now, you can differ on your opinion of whether you think that's of value to the community. You wouldn't need the public infrastructure if you weren't developing the downtown. We believe, those who might support this, that to have valid and viable and robust economic development, it has to be a mix with the level of intensity that we want to see the downtown develop, with the amount of tax base that we want to see developed in the downtown to help sustain non-residential tax base in the years to come, that you have to have the right level of public infrastructure with these types of developments. And what we're doing by jump-starting this is a bit of a effort to promote the downtown development that has not happened in the 20 years that I've been approximately on the council, and the 24 years been in the community. And so you can judge whether that's a sound bet based on your view of economics. I think the time would be one of the issues that would tell, but I hope that you feel that any decision that people make up here, whether for or against it, they're doing it with good conscience and good intent and have the measure and the betterment of the community at heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
Well, I just want to make one comment. I've been in this town since 1986, and I've watched it grow from 3,000 people to where we are today. When I moved here, the area on 131st and 37 was a cornfield. Then it became a driving range, and then it was going to be a water park, and it is what it is today. The 116th and Allisonville had cattle. You know, do I like those things? Yes. But is it reality to think that 116th and Allisonville is going to stay a cattle farm? This is 116th Street. This is prime real estate. And it's not even being taxed. It's going to sit out there for an open space. We've given you an alternative. You have an amphitheater in the back here. That space out there where we were having the concert, we just outgrew it. We had 4,500 people attending some of the concerts back here. That wouldn't have worked out front. So I'm not crazy about, all the development, but at the same time, I'm a realist. And I think it's planned. The idea that we're rushing this thing through, I've sat in your seats for many years before I got on the council, and I watched at least 2 or 3 starts on trying to develop downtown. And it just didn't go anywhere. It didn't go anywhere because, as Stuart indicated, it needed some help from the council to get things moving. And that's what we're doing here. We're helping things along. Is it a gamble? Yes. But we don't just do it blindly. We have professional people we employ who have done this professionally before they came with us, and they're looking at it today in a professional manner. I'm also a little bewildered by Ms. Cox's position, because this seems to be a pattern. You've done this with a previous discussion. This has been talked about upstairs, downstairs. You've been involved in the discussions of RFP versus this contractor. Last week you had no problem with it. I think maybe this week you had no problem with it. But we have some people who get up here today and start saying things that might hurt your campaign. So I believe this is the position. I think you're disingenuous.
Well, I would just like to say, Councilor Colby, that things that are said upstairs are not in front of the public view, and that is one of the issues that I have, and that's why I say these things down here.
Again, you're distorting the facts. The work session is open to the public. So it's not done behind closed door, and that's the implication you're trying to make here.
Mike, I would just say it's anyone's prerogative to change their view at any time. And so other candidates for mayor have come forward and declared it. So just because someone now views their position 180 degrees different, we should not, criticize that.
Well, certainly at this point, just to kind of bring everybody together, certainly appreciate everyone's comments tonight. We may not all agree, but we may have to agree to disagree, but certainly appreciate everyone's comments tonight. And thank everybody for their input.
Mr. President, I would just suggest now that if you ask any comment or questions from any of these bodies, and then I think appropriate then to seek motions.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions?
Trina.
This isn't that right. Is on the multifamily housing, just from the school district's concern. Is it anticipated that that would be for tenants that would not necessarily increase our enrollment?
Yeah, the answer is yes. That is exactly the tenants that we expect there. I've been involved in developments like this in other areas of the state, in central Indiana, in fact. And what we found in those developments is that the children generated are. I developed an 80-unit or 84-unit project in a dense area, and the school bus would pull up and there would be 2 or 3 children getting on it.
Mm-hmm.
The reason for that is just the type of living. This project doesn't have a playground. It doesn't have that type of, this is dense living. This particular project will have studios in it, really for that young professional who's probably at work more than they are at home. And so the answer to your question is absolutely yes. We would expect of this particular project, if it ends up being 120 units, and that's still in flux at somewhere between 100 and 120, it's probably half or probably 1/4 of what the typical unit would generate from the school system.
But I think, Tom, maybe a more data-driven answer from my point of view is that what we've seen in apartments or condos or the residential unit is as the number of bedrooms increases above 1, 2, or 3 bedrooms, then that you see a possibility of increased children of school age. And when you see 1, 2 bedrooms versus 2 and 3 bedrooms as a percentage, especially in this design, that's going to drive just because of demographics and who ends up occupying these units. You're going to see far fewer children coming out of these types of units, but it's driven mostly by not only the aesthetic and amenities that Tom mentioned, but more principally by the number of bedrooms.
Right, I understand that because of other apartment complexes have gone in. When is the anticipated completion then? When do you foresee all of these apartments occupied? Just so I can kind of think through the timing of our next
The earliest would be at the, I would think towards the end of 2015.
Okay. And I wanted to comment too, I appreciated in your presentation how you explained the impact and how it affects the school district, because I find that very helpful, and we appreciate that that's being taken into consideration when you make the presentation.
Tom, I have a question, more for the public, so that there's a great understanding of the kind of tenants in these spaces. What will the rents be? Because that'll drive the type of education, the type of job that you see, going into these apartments. Rents drives to the people. So where do you see the rents?
So I think the rents in this project will be in the range of $1.20 to $1.30 a square foot. So if you're looking to translate that to a monthly, that's per month. So if you're looking at a 1,000 square foot 1-bedroom or 1,000 square foot studio, you're at $1,200 before you get charged for maybe perhaps parking or for your pet or any other type thing. So yeah, it's not the right out of college job usually, unless you got a really good job in today's economy. But it's that younger professional who's been at work 4 or 5 years and then is looking to move in. But also, I would tell you that rental housing in the U.S. since 2004 to 2012 across the U.S. has increased by 4%. Typical community has today about 35% rental stock in it. Just 8 years ago in the U.S. that was 31%. And that's not just because of the recession. That's a demographic shift and more people wanting to lease. And so you'll see, retired individuals living here before they might want to go to a Del Webb type thing, or just people who are empty nesters wanting to live in this type of lifestyle, which I've seen before as well.
My point was, if you know, that puts those rents at the higher end of Fishers, does it not?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely, yeah. Yes,
Thank
it
you.
will. Thank you.
Tom, one other question. I apologize, I may not have made the note. How many three-bedroom units are there?
None, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
so this one is no three-bedroom units. So, in fact, the mix is more studios and ones than it is twos.
Other questions? Do I have a motion?
John, I'm going to make a motion to approve.
Resolution R 021714B.
Second.
Motion by Stewart, second by, please.
I'm not running for office. I do appreciate this constant. That's probably not true. I appreciate most people's constant. There's one comment in particular I didn't appreciate. I'm sorry. I'm not running for office. So just to make sure that's really clear. I do appreciate most comments tonight. I really do. There's one comment that I do not appreciate tonight. And I'm going to tell you how I'm going to vote. I simply weigh the pros and cons of all the projects. And on this one, I'm against it. No, it's overall, it's a good project, but there's some things I don't like, and so I'm going to vote against it. So it's not a gut-wrenching or heart-wrenching decision. There's no bad motives on the part of, from my perspective. There's some things I don't like about it, but that's okay. That's the nature of democracy. You can disagree with people. I disagree with people every day, and I consider Stuart and Mike really good friends, and there's been many times I've disagreed with them on many votes, and they've disagreed with me. They're good people. I would do anything for them. But we about 2 or 3 years ago, we had one person in the community who kept advocating Fishers become a city. Okay? And that's Mr. Purvis. And when you have a city in Indiana, the mayor, in my opinion, calls all the shots. The city council really doesn't do much of anything. And Mr. Purvis knew very good and well when he was advocating for us to become a city that mayors in Indiana, it cost a lot of money to run for mayor. Okay? He knew that very, very well, better than anybody else in this room, and better than probably most people who voted on the issue. He knew that better than anybody because he was the person advocating it the most. And he knew how much the races for mayor in Cromwell cost, and the races for mayor in Westfield cost, and the races for mayor in Noblesville cost, and the races for mayor in Indianapolis cost. He knew all that. If you run for mayor anywhere in the state of Indiana, it costs money to run. It's beyond disingenuous for an attorney who advocated for Fishers to become a city to stand at the podium at a public meeting and say that someone collected a campaign contribution because they're running for mayor, who's not on the council running for voting on the issue. It's beyond disingenuous. Beyond disingenuous. And attorneys are supposed to act with integrity and honesty at all times. So that was the entertaining part of the meeting for me is the lack of integrity. And I don't know what it is, because I don't know if Scott's in favor of it. I presume he is in favor of it. I'm voting against it. I don't know if it's because Greg is supporting Renee, and Greg's got all the Democrats to support Renee for the mayor's race. I don't know what it is, but there's something going on that most people don't see and perceive because they're not that deep into the weeds that Mr. Purvis is. But it's a totally inappropriate shot, and he's doing it for the campaign purpose of getting a person to switch their vote at the last minute to go along with him. That's my 2 cents, and I'm not running for office.
Thank you, Scott. We have a motion by Stewart, a second by Pete. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mr. President. So we'll,
Do we have
Yeah,
any
so we
voting?
need-
Any voting need to be done here?
yeah, so we need Town Hall Building Corp. and the RDC, and we did not get a quorum for the EDC. So Town Hall Building Corporation, Rich and Julie.
On behalf of Town Hall Building Corporation, I'll make a motion to pass resolution 01714.
Second. You go ahead and call for the vote, Rich. Your vote. Okay, thank you. RDC, Paul.
Thank you. We are going to consider FRC Resolution 09R021714. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution passes.
Great, and then if we could officially adjourn your meeting, Rich, just adjourn, all you can say is adjourned. Okay, good. And let the record reflect RDC is adjourned as well.
We're adjourned.
Okay, good, thank you. We'll turn
Thank
the
you.
agenda
We're going
back
to take a
over you.
5-minute recess. And Thank you all very much. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, item 7, request to approve a joint resolution regarding funding for public schools in Hamilton County.
For the record, Scott Fadness, Town Manager. This is an initiative that I've been working on along with the council members and the school superintendent school board for the better part of probably 2 months now. And it's a culmination of several public policy issues at the state level that are causing some real constraint on our schools from a fiscal perspective. Two issues for the most part. First and foremost is Senate Bill 517 that was passed a couple years ago, which basically, without getting into too much complex financial detail, has something to do with circuit breaker loss and where you can absorb your circuit breaker loss. What the Senate Bill 517 said is schools would no longer be able to absorb circuit breaker loss, which is a property tax circuit breaker loss, in their debt funds. So for schools like Hamilton County or Hamilton Southeastern schools and Westfield and growing schools where they've issued a lot of debt to build new schools to keep up with growth, has a significant impact on them. To the point where if something is not done by the end of this spring, by the end of this legislative session, Westfield stands to lose about 94% of their transportation dollars because that circuit breaker loss will now be absorbed in the Transportation and Capital Fund. We have worked side by side with the Hamilton County Commissioners, the Westfield City Council, the Carmel City Council, working with Noblesville to see them approve this as well, and really trying to have one common voice for Hamilton County that says we have a couple issues in our public schools. One, Senate Bill 517, which Representative Todd Houston has proposed legislation that would correct this issue, House Bill 1062. We are in support of that bill. That bill would alleviate this issue and would allow for transportation funding to continue for our schools, both in Hamilton Southeastern schools as well as Westfield and others. So that is the one immediate issue that we see in this resolution, talking about the adverse impacts of Senate Bill 517 on our schools for transportation and capital dollars. The other longer-term issue that we've been working on is to raise awareness to the fact that the two lowest publicly funded schools per pupil in the state of Indiana today is Carmel Public High School and second, Hamilton Southeastern schools. So Carmel schools and Hamilton Southeastern schools are the two lowest funded per pupil schools in the state of Indiana. And the vast majority, if you recall, the vast majority, probably in the high 90th percentile, 98, 99% of the funding that goes to our schools comes from the state. And the reason that there's this difference, if you will, because we get about half of what some of the other schools get per pupil, is a thing called the complexity formula. The complexity formula is based on your percentage of free and reduced lunch kids in your program. Now, Hamilton County as a whole, as a collective for all of our school systems, recognize that there are other schools with social problems, dire social problems in in the region, if you will, or in Indianapolis that require additional funding. Our concern is the sustainability of our school system. At the rate that we're funding schools today, I think you've already heard that the Hamilton Southeastern schools are looking at a $5 million cut in their budgets. Class sizes continue to increase. And so what we're really trying to do with this resolution is raise awareness of two things. One, the immediate issue of Senate Bill 517 and our support for Representative Houston's House Bill 1062. And secondly, to start a dialogue with the state about trying to bring more funding back to our schools per pupil. Because if we do not maintain our schools and maintain the funding for our schools, our ability to fund other parts of this state will deteriorate significantly. So I would ask for your support on this issue. It's an important issue to the schools. We've been working with Brian Smith. I was in front of the county commissioners recently. They approved it unanimously. I believe we'll have county council approval shortly and should have a collective group of people, for the first time that I could recall, in Hamilton County united around a common issue, a common concern, and hopefully that will raise awareness and hopefully get the folks down at the State House talking about how to sustain this.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions?
Scott, a couple things. I think you said it, but I just want to clarify further. IPS versus, say, Fishers and really all the Hamilton County schools is almost double?
Yes, I don't have the numbers right here with me, but I believe it's almost double.
It's like 5 versus...
I think it's 4,300 versus, yeah, close to $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, yes.
And then you said, but I just want to say it again, the school funding, basically, the majority of that is done by the legislature. The formula guides, the recs, even stronger with that, what each school system gets. And this is not a new problem. This, since I've been on the council, I know Scott and Stuart probably too, this continues to happen, but the problems keep getting smaller and smaller every time there is a change.
Right.
And that's why over the last number of years it's become more critical.
I think if you look at the numbers that Dr. Smith or others would provide to you, the school system here has lived off of less than a cost of living adjustment for the last several years, or the consumer product index. We've lived off less than that, and our schools, frankly, just cannot continue to sustain themselves at that level without some sort of change in the state funding formula. Other questions?
Do you have a motion to approve the request? Motion by Scott, second by Pete. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes
Thank
have
you.
it. Well done, Scott. Thank you.
John, if I
Please.
could.
Absolutely.
Could I ask that we take a look at agenda item number 12 and look at that now? That's a first reading on a request for a rezone.
Sure.
And I see the folks
Yeah,
are
they're
sitting
posted in
out
the
there
back.
for a
Thank you,
while. Not that I don't want you to hang around for our meeting, but if we can get to that now, that might allow them to go
Let
home.
you guys get home a little bit earlier tonight. Item 12, request to approve a rezone for property on the northeast corner of 96th Street and Mollenkoff Road from R2 to PUDC.
Great, thank you. For the record, I'm Adam Zaklakowski, a planner 2 with the Community Development Department. This item before you, again, as was stated, it's a first reading for a rezoning at the northeast corner of 96th Street in Mollenkoff. The map here shows where it's located. It's right along the area in Hamilton County line. The properties are currently zoned R2. To the north is the Bucks Creek neighborhood. Sorry, can you hear me okay? Great, thanks. To the north is the Bucks Creek neighborhood. To the south are some custom and estate homes in Indianapolis. To the east is the Geist Woods neighborhood. And off to the west is Windermere Village. These are just some street view images. This is looking east at the intersection of 96 and Mollenkoff. You can see on the left-hand portion of the screen there a couple of the houses that would be rezoned under this ordinance. Again, moving eastward, you can see some more older residential development, single family, on the north side of the roadway. Just to get into some of the history on this case, there was a previous request back in 2012. There were 9 lots along 96th Street as part of that request. It was reviewed by council and the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission continued it in the fall of 2012. The petitioner withdrew their request. There was some public opposition at the time. The current request is a slightly expanded proposal to include 11 lots total, basically 2 additional lots on 97th Street. There is a planned unit development document that accompanies this rezone. There are 5 properties at the corner which would generally follow the C2 zoning district, which would allow for retail or office. The remaining 6 properties along 96 would follow C1 standards and would only allow for office uses. Again, as part of the criteria for any type of rezone, there are a number of different items that is outlined in state law of what we should be looking at. The outline of that is contained within the report. Again, the PUD sets forth a number of amended standards that go above and beyond what the UDO would call for. Things like permitted and excluded uses, setbacks, architectural materials, landscaping, etc. This here is a potential concept plan that accompanies the PUD. It sets forward a potential drugstore user on the lot, which has not been determined at this time, but again, for concept only. Again, this is simply a first reading, and the item would be transmitted to the Plan Commission for review. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them, and of course, the applicant is here as well. Thank you.
What's that first reading?
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions, or I guess a request. For a second reading, if I could see a graph showing the difference between what was requested for usage in the first request and what's being requested today in this PUD, if there's any changes. And secondly, you've indicated that there potentially could be a drugstore that might be on the corner, pharmacy, and typically the newer pharmacies have a drive-through. And so this would be within 400 feet of a residential, so that would be precluded at least on the surface. It would have to get approved through a variance or something. So I just think that needs to be addressed.
Or the PUD.
Or the PUD, yeah. So I think that, if that has not been communicated to the petitioner, it should.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One more comment I have too, just quickly, because I remember what's going on. You've got to get to the GFPOA. Better be talking to those guys because they're not going to be happy again. And then I think there was one neighbor that was to the rear that we were with at one point. I don't know if that's been rectified or not. You want to take a look at that one neighbor. So I know that's where the opposition is going to come from again, planning commission somewhere.
Thank you.
Back, you've got a list of excluded uses that they try to get exactly what's in C1, C2. I know that here they're going for the C2 type of regulation. This is what it would be, and usually what they're restricting. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I don't know if you heard that, but just in this regulation, they're asking for C2 uses, but they have restricted certain ones of that list. So I just ask that when they come back, just give us that full list so that we can make sure what's been restricted.
Sure, we can do that, Mr. George.
Thank you. Scott made a motion. We've had first reading. Thank you.
Just, I'll add a couple
Please,
comments.
please.
Thank you, John. So this parcel and the petitioners, are the most informed, but there's been different staff in the development department have been aware of this development proposal or aspects of it over time. I know that Scott and others and David and Mike, either in the audience or up here, have seen it. There was, and I'm going on a little recollection now, so I don't state this as fact, it's more to be looked into and validated for second reading. But I was in favor of seeing this develop en masse, if you will, or having the collection of the properties along 96th Street. And here we see the addition of 2 more properties just to the north that make it a more viable corner development also. But there was at one time either a consummated agreement or an agreement of the property owners that would have had sort of a shared value or a shared understanding as the development would be built. And there was, at least in my mind, I formulated a concept that it had progressed, that it would be looking, as the outline that you showed, a single developer would take that down. They might not develop it all at one time, but there would be a purchase of the full element in my mind. Okay, and that's why you had such the arduous effort of getting so many citizens to coordinate around that. Okay, and so I don't know that that ever got consummated, but there was certainly some, neighborhood garage meeting, alignment. And so what I wasn't in favor of is the neighbors who feel like they're going to get an extensive development and see the only thing that goes is the corner, okay? And then nothing ever develops. There's not a land use or land taker of the residual property. And so there was just, so just clarity maybe at second reading, just a reminder, kind of, is my recollection off or mostly on, and where are we today in the collective nature? So it's not really a land use question, but it's a question of equity and support and expectations that people have, and what's dependent on it.
Sure, we can certainly look into that.
If you could step up to the podium, please, Randy, and state your name for the record.
I'm Randy Campbell. I live at 10630 East 96th Street. That has been put in place, that we have an agreement between all of us, that the group is, so that you don't exclude somebody or somebody doesn't benefit largely over the other.
Right.
That has been in place, still is in place.
Okay.
And
So I think, thank you, Randy. I mean, maybe just as, if the staff can get a view of that, if it's been
Absolutely.
memorialized, and so they can be represented to us in a session like this.
Be glad to share it with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions for me?
Well, to kind of go along with what Stuart was mentioning, the trying to give a holistic approach in terms of the redevelopment. I know that the petitioner does not control this, but in his memo to us, he talks about creating a TIF district for the Bucks Creek, and that any incremental difference be applied towards the redevelopment of Bucks Creek. I think that's a really good idea. I mean, Bucks Creek, if you look at all the older neighborhoods in the community, it is, if it's not the oldest, it is in the top 3. And so in terms of a need, and this is, to me, an ideal situation for a TIF district, because you have a neighborhood that needs redeveloped, and this potentially provides us funding source for that redevelopment. So to me, that incorporates some of your holistic approach in terms of redevelopment with that TIF idea. So I appreciate you bringing that forward to us.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions for me?
Thank you for your perseverance.
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
I appreciate it.
You got 2 more.
We did, and continue to grow. I hope maybe the TIF will help that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've had first reading.
Number 13 is also a rezone of the public crowd.
Sure.
You wouldn't mind hearing that?
I don't know. Shift things around a little bit. Moving to item 13, a request to approve a rezone for the Johnson property located at 12134 East 131st Street from R2 to C3 with restrictions.
Thank you for that consideration. Good evening. My name is Kevin Stotts. I'm a planner 2 in the Department of Community Development. I'm here tonight to present the request to rezone 3.5 acres of land, as which I refer to as a Johnson property, from R2 residential to C3 commercial with restrictions. The site is located west of, west of Brooksville Road. Here's Brooksville Road. Here's our site, just on the north side of 131st Street, where that kind of dead ends to Mudsock Fields, and it's adjacent to I-69 as well. The property is currently zoned R2, which allows for the following uses I've listed there. Obviously, the main use being single-family dwellings. However, the list continued there is also permitted in our R2 zoning districts. If you were to develop the current site as zoned R2, you would need to follow development standards for that zoning district. However, if you were to develop the site as a group home, cemetery, library, or school, for example, you would use the use-specific development standards, which are for permitted non-residential uses. The request tonight, as I said, was to rezone from R2 to C3 with restrictions. Those restrictions would include what permitted uses would be allowed on this property. As you can see here, the permitted uses would allow for some C3 uses as we've listed above here. Some of those are also already permitted within the R2 zoning district as well. All other C1, C2, and C3 uses would be prohibited on this site. The reason I brought up the use-specific standards, along with this C3 rezone, part of the restrictions will be that this site development standards would follow the permitted non-residential uses. Examples of this, as a place of worship or a group home or a library, they would have additional standards set on them above and beyond what a residential single-family home would have. For instance, there are additional architectural requirements for a new building. There are additional landscaping and buffer yards required for non-residential uses. Outdoor storage is restricted to the point to where it needs to be completely screened from all views. And then in this case, the petitioner has also put on an additional restriction of hours of operation from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Kind of the driving factor behind the rezone request is to allow Mr. Johnson's lawnmower repair shop, which falls within the general service business category as shown previously. Here is the general concept plan of what's been provided to staff so far. The petitioner would like to take advantage of the existing 1,200 square foot pole barn, which is on site. Minimum additions will be made to the exterior of the site. The gravel would be paved, additional landscaping as you can see there, and then the pole barn would be used for the business. With that in mind, we'd ask that you hold first reading and send this to Plan Commission for public hearing.
And that last schematic showed some vegetative buffering. Can you?
Yes, everything to the south and the east there is representing trees, a mixture between deciduous and evergreen, which would be required by the use-specific standards, which are set in the Unified Development Ordinance. And that's the type of landscaping and buffer that the petitioner would be required to install if the rezone were to go through.
Motion at first reading.
At first reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving back to item 8 on our agenda this evening, ordinance 111813A, request to approve an amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance to add Nickel Plate District Code, third reading.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Dale Davis with the Community Development Department, and coming back before you tonight for its third reading is the Nickel Plate District Code. This, as you've seen in Tom's presentation earlier, this has gone through extensive public outreach. We're recruiting the businesses, and now we're getting ready to construct them. So we need a code that responds to their needs. So at second reading, we looked at what had changed since Plan Commission. Now we had a few issues left to work through. Since then, we've worked through the Lantern and South Trail. So we have that in place now. We've worked through the definitions. Those now match the UDO, so this will sync much better. We've also looked through the signage and the public works needs. So now the needs of the parking, the needs of the signage, and the needs of the lighting, that all jives with what Public Works was already planning. One point that we should bring up is that in a Town Center Review Committee meeting, it came to light that maybe we need a second architect on our review board as part of the Town Center Review, kind of becoming the Nickel Plate Review. Now, after talking with our legal counsel, since we didn't bring that up as a change that we were going to do at our second reading, we weren't able to make that change in the document. We can certainly make that amendment, but we couldn't make that change for you tonight. But with that said, we would recommend holding the third reading and adopting the ordinance.
So let me understand. So you're recommending that you add another one? Is that essentially what I'm hearing?
Yes, we would have liked to do
So
that.
you would like to hear a friendly amendment to that, to add a second? Okay, all right, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any
Pete,
questions?
just to clarify, if we make that amendment tonight, it would send it back to Plan Commission.
Is
So,
that a significant change?
It's taking a membership from 9 to 10.
I think usually what Scott was alluding to is the council would have to determine whether that is a significant change warranted to be referred back to the Plan Commission, or a de minimis improvement or modification by which we could act upon it with the amendment and not have to send it back to Plan Commission. So, and we might formulate the view that it's de minimis and could act, and we would ask for your opinion on that, and then we would consider that and then act as we so
Is there any, before you answer that, is there any reason that delay would cause harm?
We're already going to be kind of a month behind because of the 30-day cooling off period after.
But what harm arises from further delay?
It really depends when KFC, when Loftus Robinson, when all of those file. If they file within that 30 days, they're going through under the UDO, which means.
Better send it back. No.
Which means we might have more exemptions, more BZA, more paperwork.
Yeah, it has to go back.
What I would recommend is, if this is something we would like to do, we can always do a text amendment at a later date.
Yeah.
Knowing that that is something that we would like to add, we could tee that up in a parallel track.
That's fine.
Because the majority of the material will be approved tonight, and then we can always add that as a text amendment shortly thereafter.
Yeah, you don't want to screw with those projects with this amendment.
Right.
And for clarification purposes, if we do pass this tonight and then we later do a text amendment, and it goes back to the Plan Commission, that text amendment would be the only item to be considered by the Plan Commission?
Correct.
And I would wholeheartedly support having it passed tonight to move on and be in coordination with our projects.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve ordinance 111813A.
I have a motion by Pete. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Stuart. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9, ordinance 021714, request to approve an ordinance amending the town of Fishers traffic schedule. First reading.
Good evening. For the record, Jeff Hill with the Engineering Department, here before you requesting your consideration regarding the ordinance and the information contained within your council packets, requesting additions and changes to the Town of Fishers traffic schedules. Briefly, the Schedule 1 in your packet Exhibit A describes additions to stop signs that are needed throughout the town. In particular, there's a number of streets we've accepted over the past few years that the streets have been added to our inventory. The stop signs have been installed, yet we didn't follow through with the ordinance, adding those to our town code so they're enforceable. Similarly, there's a handful of deletions in Exhibit B. Those are at locations where we've either added roundabouts or signals and have taken away stop signs. Schedule 2, Exhibit C, is addition of yield signs where we've had yield conditions and signs installed but no ordinance in place to enforce. And then Exhibit D, deletion of yield signs that were converted to stop signs and are covered in that first exhibit. Further, we've got the addition of traffic signals on Schedule 5, Exhibit F, signalized intersections that we've added over the past couple of years that were not added to the ordinance. Those are the items in the documentation in a summary. If you've got specific questions, I'll be glad to answer them. However, I'm actually asking for your consideration in suspending the rules and adopting on first reading. We did properly notice the
these changes and would request that you hold a public hearing and consider approval tonight.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions?
Was it noticed, Jeff, that you would be asking for us to consider that on first reading? Because
It was not part of the agenda, but we did properly notice it to the public with regards to changes to the schedule, and that actually went out prior to developing the agenda for this evening. If you choose not to take action tonight, we can certainly re-advertise and consider at a future meeting.
Does it make enforcing our traffic laws more difficult if these aren't on our schedule?
Well, I guess I'd leave that to Judge Henke, but my understanding would be that if they're not properly in our town codes and follow through with this ordinance, we may have trouble enforcing a violation or ticket in court.
I'm probably inclined to.
And just clarity, was it, because we've not on this, the content, so, because I'm supportive of the content. The
Sure.
issue of this goes to process, and did we effectively not, because I got a little lost in your explanation, and when I read the line item and look at the form, they don't match up. Maybe they do, I just need to be educated.
The important part is that it was properly noticed. And so if it's been properly noticed, then you can consider it. Now, it would have been nice had it been notified here on the agenda as well, but we have met the legal requirement for notice. So I'd leave it up to the council to determine whether they want to give additional time because it wasn't on the agenda.
Is there anyone here wanting to be heard on this? 'Cause that'd be interesting. We have one person, so I guess.
I'll put my input in on one thing. I'd like to have seen the list in advance because I noticed.
Can you, sir, state
your name for the
name and
record,
address.
yes, please?
Once again, my name is Maurice Heitzman. I'm at 11156 Meadows Drive. One of the things I've noticed that we have is kind of a oddity. We have a roundabout, for example, on Fountain View or Fisher's Point Drive now, that has stop signs on all four approaches. And I'm trying to figure out why that's not on there to remove the stop signs and put yield signs on. And other places like that where it helped with the flow of traffic and it would avoid people running the stop sign because they do now, because on slick roads you can't get the momentum to make the turn.
So I apologize, I didn't quite follow your comment. Are you saying
I think
where there are
there's-
four-way stop signs, you want two of them to be yield and one of them, and the other?
No, I want all four
was
of
it-
them down because it's a roundabout. Right now it's a roundabout.
Roundabout,
And it has a stop sign on all approaches.
Yeah.
And I'd like to.
That's the one that's in Heritage Meadows, and I think that
Yes,
they've
it
always
is.
wanted that because it's residential to have the stop signs, because the residents want to have that flow stopped.
But the residents don't stop.
Yeah, they know.
So-
I know.
But, I mean, you can't.
Let's get out there.
Well,
Thank
I think,
everybody.
those types of requests we could certainly look at through our transportation committee and evaluate. Anytime we talk about removing signs or doing anything like that, it's good to get input from police and fire and engineering.
Thank you. Anybody else?
If we're looking to take down stop signs, there's a roundabout in Saxony that, same thing. Not many people stop for it. Yeah. So I don't know if we can from an engineering perspective.
I
If
know the
something-
location that was mentioned, and that one, I'll say, functions more like an older school traffic circle versus a modern roundabout where
Sure.
we're pursuing these yield conditions. It can certainly be investigated and considered further.
But getting back to the ordinance at issue, just from an administrative, court administration, if we write a bunch of tickets and it could create a lot of problems in terms of the administration of the court. I know, I understand it would have been nice to send out a public notice saying all three readings, but we don't live in a perfect world. I know, and I think most people who live in our community would want us to pass it so that there's no ambiguity or no misunderstanding of what the traffic laws are. But that's me. Well, that's a motion to suspend the rules, but
Why don't we just make a motion to suspend the rules?
Motion to suspend the rules and approve on first reading.
Motion by Scott, second by Pete. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Do we need a public hearing?
We had.
We did.
We did?
We
Okay,
held
I'm
the
sorry.
public hearing.
I apologize.
It's okay.
We had the gentleman comment.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 10, ordinance 021714A, request to annex 60 acres located at 16141 East 101st Street, currently known as Cynthia M. Park South property. First reading.
Good evening again. For the record, I'm Adam Zach Lukowski with the Community Development Department. This item before you, these are both this item is the annexation, and the following item is the rezoning. They both concern Cynthia N. Park South. So for purposes of flow, presentation will be combined into one item. As you can see, this particular project is located way out in the southeast portion of Fishers, off of 101st Street and Cynthia Ann. The property is currently in unincorporated Hamilton County. On this map here, you can see where the current town limits are. The dark green indicates the property that would be annexed as part of this action. Again, the property today is R2. That carries a residential designation. If you take a look at the aerial photograph, you'll see that it's predominantly a former agricultural field. There is some forested areas on the eastern part of the site.
I'm ready to make a motion. Yeah, you've done a great job, and I'm all in favor of annexing all this stuff. I think everybody knows my history on annexations. Pete probably better than others. But I'd make a motion. Do we just first reading for all of them? Is that what we're doing?
Sure.
Okay, first
You're
reading
on.
all the annexations.
You're on a roll, Scott. Go.
Let's go.
I thought you
10.
wanted to suspend the rules and approve it.
Yeah, I was ready to do that as well, but I know we can't do that.
10 and 11.
I learned that the hard way.
10 and 11.
10 and 11.
10.
10 and 11.
Just 2.
And we've already done 12 and 13 previous.
Good job, though.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we've had
Thank
first
you.
reading. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to item 14, request to approve an ordinance amending the town's personnel manual.
Good evening. For the record, CC Hendricks, Human Resources Director. For you, a request to amend the personnel manual and the PTO policy. I do have one request to change the last sentence to read, granted for their use in the final year of service for clarity. And this is to allow employees who've had 20 years or more of service to get their full year's worth of PTO, to give them something, a different consideration than any other employee who would resign from the town of Fishers. Also, if you do consider this amendment, I would like to make it effective January 1st of this year.
Thank you.
Yes, correct.
Any questions for CC?
Change the last part of the sentence. Sure. Sure. I'll read the whole sentence. Any employee with 20 or more years of service will be eligible for a full cash out of all PTO time granted for their use in the final year of service, regardless of month of separation.
You can't get 19 years in that? I'm sorry. That's a bad joke.
Yes, you can have not only.
I know.
You can have all of my PTO.
I know. There's a joke. There's several jokes in there. But.
I'm sorry, you were changing it to read what? Final, the final year. Final year? Mm-hmm.
This is first, second, and third reading, so I have a motion to suspend the rules and pass with the...
So move.
Second.
Motion by Stewart, second by Scott. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Item 15, request 021714D, request to approve resolution of the town of Fishers confirming the designation of 7684 Cross Point Commons as an economic revitalization area, providing a 2-year tax payment. Hello, Tim.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tim Gropp, Assistant Director of Economic Development. The resolution before you is the final step to complete the Economic Development Agreement with OSSIP Optometry. As you recall, OSSIP Optometry is planning to relocate, did that come up? Yes. Is planning to relocate their corporate headquarters to Cross Point 4, which is 9795 Cross Point Boulevard. In addition, they plan to remodel the building located at 7864 Crosspoint Commons to be their flagship optometry center. That is the property that we have on the overhead currently. This project is going to result in 15 retained jobs, 54 relocated positions, and 59 new positions by 2018. They also plan to invest approximately $3 million on the projects. The council approved the economic development agreement and the tax abatement at their February 3rd council meeting. They also, council also approved the declaratory resolution at the February 3rd meeting establishing the economic revitalization area. We properly posted public notice, and all overlapping taxing units were given copies of the resolutions and Exhibit A. We are now asking council to hold a public hearing on the ERA and then consider the confirmatory resolution on the establishment of the economic revitalization area.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions before we open up the public hearing? Okay, at this point, we'll open up the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak, please come forward.
Greg Purvis, 12271 Chiseled Stone Drive. I rise to support this proposal, much to the surprise of one member of the council who wasn't paying attention when I said and wrote before that I supported this wholeheartedly. This is exactly the kind of economic development Fishers needs to be doing. I commend the council and town staff for entering into this agreement. This is far better than borrowing tens of millions of dollars in TIF districts for proposals that will not add to the general tax base. So I support this proposal.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you. Anybody else? This time we'll close the public hearing. Any questions from the council? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve R021714D.
Motion by Pete, second by Renee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Thank you. Item 16, request to approve the resolution of the Town of Fishers approving certain economic matters in connection with the Consolidated Fishers I-69 Downtown Economic Development Area, removing certain restrictions. Okay. Welcome back, Tim.
Thank you. I'll be here a while. The next three agenda items all deal with amendments to the economic development plans, which are the legal documents that guide the administration of TIF districts for the Redevelopment Commission and reflect the projects and goals set forth for these districts. As projects complete, new projects are brought up and TIF laws change, we from time to time have to amend this plan to reflect those changes and the intentions of the council and the Redevelopment Commission. The process for such amendments are as follows. The Redevelopment Commission, for this specific amendment, initiates the amendment, which was done on February 3rd. The Plan Commission then reviews the amendment and determines if there's an effect of the overall town comprehensive plan. They passed an order approving the amendment February 11th, and then it was sent to the town council tonight to review the amendment. If passed tonight, all three of these amendments, public notice will be provided to taxing districts and to the public. And then at the next RDC meeting, public hearing will be held on all the amendments, and we'll pass confirmatory resolutions adopting the change if the wish of the RDC. The amendment before you right now is this year a reinterpretation of the current TIF laws. This is not a new law, but the DLGF changed their opinion on how a current law was on the books. And it led to a change in that when you establish a TIF district, there's two parts. There's an economic development area, which is where you can spend the money, and there's an allocation area where you can collect the money. The allocation area is a smaller area within the economic development area and is generally as much commercial property, commercial industrial property. You try to leave out as many residentials. In the past, it didn't affect the TIF, but it didn't help the TIF either, so you tried to keep it as tight as possible. But some still got in there, whether it was because continuity or ease of writing the legal description or different various reasons. It might have been a whole pocket within the overall allocation area. What the change made is that if these residential parcels are in here and the increased assessed value went up, you don't capture that, but if it went down, it didn't matter. What the DLGF is saying now is that if it goes up, if your increment goes up on residential parcels, it doesn't matter, but if it goes down, it will affect your overall increment capture. So it was recommended by the state of Indiana and the county auditor's office to review all residential parcels that might be in your allocation areas and remove any unnecessary residential parcels from those allocation areas. We received lists of all residential parcels that were in our current allocation areas, and we reviewed those parcels. We only had about 6 that actually decreased in assessed value. Overall, they went up. But we evaluated each parcel, and if we felt that it wasn't going to redevelop in the next 5 to 7 years, we're recommending taking those out of the allocation area. It will not remove them from the economic development area, just the allocation area. The first resolution is for the consolidated Fishers I-69 downtown allocation, or economic development plan, and that's the top portion of this map through here. And that includes the Allisonville Road corridor, the downtown, and the 116th Street allocation areas.
Tim, I guess, how big of an issue is this? And are we trying to exempt out a few homes because we're afraid they might diminish in value, or are we trying to exempt out a whole bunch of homes because we have felt the effect of the decrease in assessed value significantly?
Overall, the assessment went up. I don't think there was a significant decrease. We actually left a lot of the parcels in, specifically in the downtown triangle, that hadn't been switched over yet. So
I guess why are we doing this? I understand there's a change in the interpretation law, and that's all fine, but just because there's a change in interpretation, if it doesn't harm us, why change our lines?
It could harm you if those parcels went down in overall assessed value. So when we calculate our TIF for all these projects, we're basing this on an increment based on the development. So if you have something eating away on that proposed increment increase, then you want to make sure that you can take those out, and it won't affect it negatively.
I guess that's, well,
it's really a technical adjustment.
I understand that, but I don't like redrawing lines because it slows us down in the future when we have to redraw them, and potentially, and I know. To me, there has to be a good reason to redraw the lines. And if there's a potential swing of 5 or 10% decrease in tax revenue overall in the whole tax district, okay, that's probably significant enough that we need to do it. But if we're talking 1% or less, I'm not sure that's significant enough to redraw lines. But maybe other people.
It's not a significant amount of money. It was really just a recommendation to do it, and there were pieces in there that we don't ever see in the foreseeable future redeveloping. So those ones we took out. If we think it's going to redevelop, then we kind of 5 to 7 time frame, we left them in there.
But it's also an expression of intent too. I mean, people, developers, you probably know better than I do. People look at maps and say, okay, am I in a TIF district, and can I? And before they ever make the call to the town, and so.
One of the recommendations is there other than possible downside if the taxes go down? Is there any other repercussions like leaving it in there?
No real repercussion other than the downside of it.
If there's a significant fiscal risk, then I think we should change it. But if there's really no real risk financially, then I don't see the.
It's all quantitative, right? I don't disagree. I'm listening to this. I'm not really sure where our plane's trying to get stuff. What are we gaining? What are we losing? And
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a real reason to do that, we can find out economically to do it. I would see what it is. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I would say to that, and I understand the point, is it may not be a lot of dollars, but we, since we've been starting to track these TIFs closely, particularly the downtown TIF, now that it was created and the base year was 2012, the last 2 assessments, we keep getting hit with appeals, and it just keeps going down and down and down. We do new development, it goes up, and then you see somebody's appealed, so your AV goes back down. And so it really felt like just death by 1,000 cuts, and if this was one of those cuts, we kind of want to just stop the bleeding here. And so it may only be a few $1,000s on these residential properties, but if one house gets torn down and doesn't get rebuilt, that literally is a TIF that you're not is going to eat up your other commercial TIFs.
Is that still considered residential property? If they tear down the house, I know.
Yeah, I think it would be until it gets repurposed. If it tells down, burn down, just whatever it might be, so.
Well,
Yeah, and the other thing, to your point about redrawing lines, I get that, but we could also, we use the 5 to 7 time frame saying, well, if there's an area out there in 10 years that redevelops, if TIF is still around, you can always expand, you can go back the other way.
If you're looking at these are houses that are older that potentially could get torn down and scraped further, and you're losing the increment there. Isn't that what to have a TIF there to try to help this property redevelop? I mean, why don't they target for redevelopment?
Go ahead.
They're still in the TIF, they're just not in the collection area, so you can still use the money to repurpose those parcels. You're just not capturing it.
But I guess, and again, so you're saying it's not in the allocation area. You want to take it out of the allocation area for a particular TIF, correct?
Right, so it doesn't affect the AV and the TIF, right?
So I guess, but if we have small holes in the allocation area, and then we come in and say, we want to reactivate the allocation area, include this hole, can you use that new revenue in the other?
Yeah.
Is there a new allocation area? Or are we simply amending the allocation area? Can you use the new TIF in the allocation area if you're taking it out? I don't know.
Yes, no, yes, no.
I think you got the last two.
Okay, right.
That's
Tim and I
the
were
risk.
sort of having small talk here. I mean, it was a recommendation because the DLGF really thought that we have a major negative, it could have an impact on TIFs. And they said, so you guys all across the state ought to take your residential property out so you don't have the downside, because our new interpretation is you're going to get the downside. We could actually, why don't we just take no action on these? We could actually go back and look and maybe quantify and see if we're talking $2,000 or $20,000. And then, because I think you raise a good point with the lines. We can take a look at that.
Well, and also if it is significant, and I'm not opposed to doing it if it's significant at all. If it is significant and we take it out of the allocation area, then let's say 10 years down the road, whatever council's in place then reactivates it, and then we have an allocation area. Is that a new allocation area?
Does the clock start over? Does all those kind of rules? We'll find out the answer to that question.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah, so I would suggest let's.
I guess.
Go ahead, Mike.
I guess if this were to pass, would this be a practice that you would implement for future TIFs? I mean.
Yes.
So I think that's a question that should be addressed with this question as well. Are we going to use this going forward in other areas?
So I think going forward, if there's a new TIF area drawn, you just need to be strategic about looking at the residential, because now you have new information, which is if it goes down over the years, it's going to hurt you, in which you never had to answer that question before. So you definitely want to take that in consideration if you did future TIF areas.
What about existing, outside of the Oleo Road and the I-69, are we looking at all TIF districts and the same as what we used to?
Those are more of our expansive TIFs that collect a larger area. Most of the other TIF districts we have are project-specific, so they don't have residential parcels. The county sent us the districts. These were the only two that had any residential in the allocation areas, and that's because they're more of a broad TIF district versus a project-specific TIF district.
Which items is this?
It's 16 and 17.
16, 17 will.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the proper procedure we would say it's tabled or if it's.
Yeah, I would make a motion to table items 16 and 17.
What about 18? Is that the same thing?
No, 18's different.
A motion and a second. 16, 17. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. We're on item 18.
18's a little bit different. We're not taking anything out of it. It's the same process as we followed before, but we were actually adding personal property capture for two projects that were approved previously. The Vox Lumen project, which is 117,000 square feet in the former Diamond Foods building, and across the street, the Office Works project, which was a retention project, to include these into the consolidated Fishers I-69 downtown TIF. Unlike most TIF districts work, where it's parcel related, when you're capturing personal property, it's not connected to a parcel, it's connected to the companies or companies in the building specifically. So we have to include the designated, we're actually designating taxpayers for capture of personal property. So we're making an amendment to the plan to include Vox Lumen, Awning Innovations, and affiliated companies, as well as Office Works, to recapture the funds that are helping pay for the economic development incentives used.
Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim? Motion by Pete, second by Renee. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nays. Moving right on. Item 19.
Next item, John, if you guys recall some time ago, I think it was last fall, Hamilton Southeastern Schools came to the town discussing a youth assistance program, which would help children that are in trouble, having social issues, things of that nature. This is a program that Mayor Cook started over in Westfield and now Hamilton Southeastern Schools. At the time, we discussed a grant approval for them, but the way the technical language of this is, it's actually a grant or an interlocal with Hamilton County. Then they actually administer the program. So tonight before you is actually just an interlocal agreement to solidify or codify that transaction with the county. Then that money would go to Hamilton Southeastern Schools to fund the personnel associated with this youth assistance program. 100%. Yes. That's all that the school had asked us for to date. I don't know if they'll come back next year or not. They haven't made that request.
So is this a diversion program? Is that?
No, it's really targeting children that are at risk in terms of any number of social issues. And this person is almost like an ombudsman to any different type of social service and things of that nature, that the schools can't necessarily take the time to deal with individuals that are really struggling in our school system.
And with all due respect to Andy Cook,
yeah,
who I like, it was Judge Nation who actually started this in Hamilton County.
Correct.
Yeah, and Judge Nation started this program because he wanted to get the kids who were identified by the school system to have somebody that's either having problems at home, heading down the wrong path, and get them before they got into the criminal justice system and try as a preventive measure as opposed to curing it after they're already in the criminal justice system. So kudos to Judge Nation and everybody else in the county who's adopted it.
I'll make a motion to approve R021714H.
Motion by Pete, second by Renee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Moving on to item 20. Request to increase lot size requirement for the platting of town-owned property at 11787 Lantern Road. Hi, Rachel.
Good evening, members of the council. This request is for an exemption for town-owned property at 11787 Lantern Road. This is the property that the town currently owns and is being reviewed for the Meyer-Najum projects. The property is currently, it falls under the UDO Town Center Main Street District and also the Town Center Commercial Residential District, and the UDO stipulates a maximum lot size under those districts. And as staff is reviewing the platting, the replatting of this area to make the property fit the Meyer-Najum project and move forward with the development of the property, we realized that the sizes of the lots exceed what the UDO standard is for those maximum lot sizes. So we're requesting an exemption under the exemption ordinance for those lots exceeding this maximum lot size. This is not an issue that we would have under the nickel plate code, but because this project came in before the nickel plate code was adopted and is being reviewed under the UDO, we are requesting that exemption. So I'm happy to answer any questions or give you further detail on that. But at this time, we'd like to request the exemption for those two standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Rachel?
I think you answered that. The filing date was before, obviously, just 20 minutes ago?
Yes.
When that was approved? Okay.
Second.
Motion by Pete, second by Stewart. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Are there any unfinished or new business?
I would just want to ask the council to consider perhaps at the next work session and the next council meeting a resolution on opposition to the proposed ending or modifying of the business personal property tax. Don't know where that'll be in the legislative process by then. It may be in place or it may be dead, but I'd like to have us consider that. That's
Absolutely. Yeah.
Most of the jurisdictions in Hamilton County have already passed that.
Yeah.
I'll have, Mike, I know you sent me some language on that. I'll circulate that to the council, the recommended resolution from IACT.
And I think there was, maybe it was just for the headlines, but there was, after the meeting with the governor and IAC members, the governor made a position that the state would backstop the funding.
Right.
And so, but I don't know if that language is in an amendment in the bill, or,
Well,
you know, maybe we can get an update on that.
Yeah, I think he said that, but he also said he wouldn't shift the cost onto taxpayers, residential taxpayers. And so we haven't seen a defined solution yet that would replace that revenue.
Right,
But,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I went, if we can understand, is it just rhetoric in the press, or is it something in the law that's, or the bill that's proposed?
It's in the Senate bill being considered. Again, whether or not it comes out, comes out of the House that way or it goes to committee.
Study committee.
And again, the IAC's position was be cautious on this, because if you're asking for state funds, it's going to have to come from somewhere. And is it going to be something that's going to last, or is it going to be pulled out of a budget, down the road? So I'd be cautious on supporting. I know that IAC had quite a campaign to bring a lot of attention to this, and that particular news conference that day, IAC was having a conference, and the governor actually called and asked to speak to some of the mayors, and that came out of that meeting. So there was a lot of generalities, but not too many specifics.
We'll try to get an update too from our folks following that legislation, get that out to you so you know what's going on.
Thank you, Mike. Are any claims being to be polled? To a motion?
One, I mean, you made just a comment, John.
Sure, please.
You made a comment, Scott, during the evening about the Transportation Committee.
Yes.
So I know we've had a couple of citizens, I know I met with a couple.
Yeah.
And so if we could just have maybe something on the website about the Transportation Committee and it's what it would be considering over the coming months. And then
Sure.
in particular, an outreach to those two, Copy and Lieutenant, who met with me, just so that we can let them have specific feedback that a lot of their ideas are being, we're being
Considered, right. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do a motion to adjourn with the trustee invoice payments and accounts payable register. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you. Drive carefully home.